until the presidential election. We're starting at
Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corva Coleman. The World Health Organization reports its new round of polio vaccinations being given in Gaza has now inoculated more than 161,000 Palestinian children. Lisa Schlein reports from Geneva that WHO officials have been able to vaccinate more children than they initially thought they could.
Day 3 of the campaign is ongoing. WHO representative Dr. Rick Pieperkorn says parents have been lining up enthusiastically at primary health care centers to get their children vaccinated.
It was almost a little bit, I wouldn't say festive mood, but it was like there were so many fathers, mothers bringing their children in, and children really proud and happy that they got vaccinated.
Pieperkorn says most of the remaining children in central Gaza should be vaccinated by the end of the day. The campaign then will shift to southern Gaza and lastly to Gaza's northern zone. WHO aims to immunize more than 640,000 children. For NPR News, I'm Lisa Schlein in Geneva.
The U.S. Supreme Court's newest Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, has released a memoir titled Lovely One. She gave an interview to NPR's Juana Summers of All Things Considered. Jackson says she's pleased the Supreme Court has adopted a voluntary code of ethics. This happened following reports of some justices' failures to disclose some donor gifts and relationships. There were also calls to investigate how the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade was leaked. Jackson notes that at this point, the court's ethics code is voluntary.
I haven't seen any good reason why there shouldn't be binding rules, but so far we're not there.
The interview with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson will air in 2 segments tonight on NPR's All Things Considered. Pope Francis has arrived in Indonesia for the start of a 12-day trip to Southeast Asia. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports from Seoul that it's the 3rd time the head of the Roman Catholic Church has visited the world's most populous Muslim-majority nation.
During his 4 days in Indonesia, Pope Francis will celebrate Mass at Jakarta's GBK Stadium and hold an interfaith meeting at the National Istiqlal Mosque. Indonesia sometimes struggles to live up to its reputation for religious pluralism and tolerance, and promoting dialogue among religions is expected to be high on Pope Francis's agenda. Pope Paul VI visited Indonesia in 1970 and Pope John Paul II in 1989. From Indonesia, Pope Francis, who is 87, will go on to visit Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, and Singapore. The trip was originally planned for 2020 but postponed due to the pandemic. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News, Seoul.
On Wall Street, stocks are sharply lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 426 points, or more than 1%. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. When Massachusetts voters head to the polls today for the 2024 primary elections, they'll see lots of Democrats and very few contested races. Democratic incumbent Senator Elizabeth Warren has never faced a primary challenge since her election in the Senate in 2012, and this election cycle is no exception. However, there are 3 Republicans, engineer Robert Antonellis, Quincy City Council President Ian Kane, and attorney and former Marine John Deaton are facing off to run against her in the November general election. Of the state's 9 incumbent representatives, all are Democrats, including Cambridge Representatives Catherine Clark and Ayanna Pressley, who are running unopposed. And only the state's 8th congressional district, which includes parts of Boston, has any Republican challengers. 3 Republicans are facing off to challenge Representative Stephen Lynch, including Robert Burke, who lost to Lynch by a landslide in 2022. And all 8 of the Massachusetts Governor's Council seats are up for grabs, and one of the most closely watched races is between 25-year incumbent Marilyn Devaney, who faces public defender Mara Dolan. Dolan has a list of very prominent Bay State politicians on her side. Some of them had been backing Devaney. Polls close at 8 p.m. In sports, Red Sox Mets back at it again tonight in New York. They're into the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows. Sunny mid-70s today, clear low 50s overnight. We're at 66 degrees outside our studios here in Brighton. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, for nearly a century, supporting efforts to promote a just, equitable, and sustainable society. More at mott.org. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Jim Browdy, I am Margery Egan. We are back. Summer is over. You are listening again to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library and streaming online. Thank you. YouTube.com/GBH News. I want to mention that Senator Elizabeth Warren is going to be with us on Thursday in Brighton, but we're going to be back here on Friday at the Boston Public Library. We're going to be joined by Governor Moore Healey from 1 to 2, taking our questions and yours. Hope you had a lovely vacation, Jim.
You too, Margery. By the way, I haven't even said anything yet, and I made a mistake. In the lead to the show,
I said something up?
No, I screwed something up. I said it's 8 weeks till Election Day. It's 9 weeks till Election Day.
All right, okay.
Now, you also screwed something up.
I did?
You're supposed to mention the next paragraph. Go ahead.
That we're trying something new. Okay, here
Yes,
we go.
are.
I thought,
This is not like riding a bike for me and Margery. It's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Usually I'm limited to
By the way, can I ask you another question?
A few words in the open.
Another question.
I'm surprised
Look at Jamie.
I get to say the next paragraph.
Look at Jamie over here. Why is he wearing an A on it? What is that? What is it? He doesn't even know what it is. I said, what's the A? He's wearing a huge A, like the size of his upper body. What's it for?
I don't know.
That is exactly what it's for.
Okay.
Thank you. Figure it out. That's a very good point. Thursday afternoon, the end of the show. Go ahead, Margery.
Okay, now I'm going to say what I am allowed to say now.
Yes.
New month, we're trying something new. The new newscast is at 1 o'clock today. We don't usually include that, but we're doing that today. And we have this new segment at the end of the 12 o'clock hour because we have such great text messengers. And you can text us today and any day at 877-301-8970. So today we have a question that you can text and address directly for our little new segment. Did you remember that it's primary election day today in Massachusetts? Are you voting? Bill Galvin, the Secretary of State, expects something like a 15% turnout, which is not really terrible.
It's horrible.
Okay, it's horrible.
Okay.
Well, it's not that bad.
It's horrible.
Usually we don't do that well in primary elections.
It's horrible.
And when we all complain again that the state legislature has done virtually nothing, they have done a couple of things, but not much. Are we to blame? You can text us at 877-301-8970. Okay.
Let's be clear. That's new. It's going to happen at the end of the 12 o'clock hour. And you text from now until whatever, and we'll read some of those and respond to them.
We already have a couple of great texts
Well, that's
already.
great. Okay, and then we're not reading them. That's the whole point. So since we're back from our summer hiatus, as Margery said, catching up on all the late August political news, just like the rest of you. So let's plug back in together. There are 2 months until the election. Again, I made a mistake. It's 9 weeks till Election Day. A high-stakes debate is exactly a week away. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are hoping they can keep the momentum up for the next 60-plus days, campaigning this week in New Hampshire, where a top Trump volunteer warned it is no longer a battleground state for the Trump campaign, even though the Trump campaign people disagreed. Meanwhile, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance can't seem to stay on message, and Republican voters against Trump launched an $11 million ad campaign in 5 key states. So, welcome back. Labor Day and the summer doldrums are behind us. We'll talk about that a little later in the show. The lines are open at 877-301-8970. Are you grudgingly plugging back into politics? And has it gotten grosser and grosser? And are you worried it'll only get worse as we approach November? 877-301-8970. So what's your sense of the state of the race, Margery, with 63 days to go?
Well, I think it's going to be a nervous wreck, very, very close election. I mean, isn't that obvious? It's going to be all about the swing states as usual. You see that Harris obviously has turned things around in terms of the disaster that I think Democrats were facing had Joe Biden stayed in the race. I mean, I saw him speaking again yesterday on Labor Day, and he was fine, but it just reminded me of why he was not good to be running again. But I think it's going to be a nail-biter, isn't it not?
I don't know. I think the next Tuesday night is the biggest night in the campaign. I think if Kamala Harris either ends the night even with Donald Trump or is seen as the victor, I hate to say these words, but I think that sort of ties things up. The person who's ahead on Labor Day, historically, I know history doesn't always govern, generally is the person who wins the election. She is either ahead or tied in all 7 of the swing states. She's ahead in national polling numbers. And I have to say, I'm going to try to do this, and I hope you'll admonish me if I make a mistake.
Yeah.
In my descriptions of the behavior of Donald Trump between now and Election Day, I'm going to try to ignore adjectives and things like that. I'm going to try to just report I was about to violate my own rule and say the nauseating things he has to say. But let me just mention, beyond the fact that he goes out of his way to talk about how Kamala Harris is stupid or not very bright, I'm going to use a word I've never used on the radio, and so I'm warning you if there are kids around or whatever. The only reason I'm doing it is because Donald Trump reposted the word. He, first of all, here's what it is. He posted on Wednesday on Truth Social, there was a screenshot from Twitter that showed an image of Harris and Bill Clinton, and another user's reply. Again, reposted by the man who wants to be president again.
It was Hillary Clinton.
Pardon me? I'm sorry, Hillary Clinton. No, it's not Hillary Clinton. It's not Hillary Clinton.
The Harris and Hillary Clinton one? About the you-know-what?
Yeah, here it is. Funny how, you're right. Funny how, this is the word, my apologies, blowjobs impacted both their careers differently. And then he talks about Harris going down on her knees. And I have to say, and I hope Trump people, because we know you listen, call in today, how that kind of behavior and language can be excused by anybody, even if he or she was running for dog catcher in your community. Add to the she turned black when it was advantageous for her. He's suggesting public military tribunals for people like Barack Obama. It's really incredible that this is tolerated in a democracy. So we don't know what your thoughts are with the current state of affairs. I have to say, in the spirit of fairness, I was not as wowed by Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in that interview with Dana Bash on CNN. I thought it was fine. I thought the fact that she was not prepared for a question that every candidate is asked, which is, what are you going to do on day one?
Yep.
And she was asked the question twice by Dana Bash, and she really didn't have an answer. Not catastrophic. It was fine. But all the questions were ones you would know were coming in advance. And by the way, let me be clear, not because you were tipped off, because it was obvious. You were against fracking, now you're for fracking. On and on, things like this, immigration questions. You would, why can people trust you if you've flipped your positions? I thought it was fine for her first interview as the nominee. It was not, I didn't think it was knock your socks off.
Well, what I thought was about, she repeated herself, and you're right, she wasn't specific enough on things, and she should have had answers to some of these questions. But I thought the whole picture of her and Walz together,
I agree with that.
She didn't have, I mean, she wasn't that likable, and it shouldn't matter, but it does matter. Likable a candidate in 2020. There's something appealing about her now that wasn't there then, and her confidence level was totally different. And the naturalness with which she delivered most of her.
I agree. Much more genuine, much more human. I agree with that.
And I think that's a big deal.
Plus, she talks about policy. I mean, for example, this notion that Trump, all of a sudden now, I don't know if you're aware of the fact, when he said the 6-week rule in Florida was horrible, but then he said he was voting against the ballot question that would change it. Hello. He says he not only supports IVF, but is going to have it all paid for.
Yeah, it's very
expensive. You know how much money that would be? And of course, there's no solution for any of it.
We pay for it in Massachusetts. Well, a lot of insurance companies do.
Right.
Not everybody, but I think for the most part you can get it covered. But I think it's like $10,000 a treatment or something like that. It's a lot of money. But I thought Governor Healy had a good line about IVF.
One of the great lines ever.
When
what
she
was
said
it?
She doesn't think Donald Trump knows how to spell IVF.
That was on Face the Nation on CBS over the weekend.
Entails. But yeah, he said that he thought that would be a great idea. But you know what's great about that is all these Republicans that talk about life beginning at conception. Obviously, they've changed their mind about that too, because IVF takes place after conception, so it shows that they're not really. But it is going to be a nerve-wracking time. You know what else is interesting? I think that there's a huge gender gap between young women who are mostly for Kamala Harris, who thinks, by the way, that reproductive rights have been
issue.
Well, she's said that those who downplay it are making a mistake because she feels it's a really big issue. But young men, I mean, Trump is going big time after the young men, like 18 to 30 or 35, and he's got a lot of support in a lot of these guys that are big stars online. So we'll see how that plays out.
877-301-8970. 9 weeks to go till Election Day. Obviously, a lot of early voting is going to start before that. How are you feeling about the state of the campaign? How are you handling the state of the campaign? Derek in the car, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Hey there.
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
Very well. Thanks for calling. What's up?
A few things.
Well, Derek, we're going to put you on hold for a second. Horrible connection. Don't go away. We'll hope you'll be in a better spot in a second. We'll come right back to you after the next call. 877-301-8970.
Diana in the car, thank you for calling.
Hey, Diana.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
calling because I'm an independent. I'm unaffiliated.
Yep.
And the choice between a deranged narcissist or a socialist leaves me nobody to vote for. And I think there are a lot of people out there in the same position. So many of my friends are saying the first time in their adult life they might not vote because there's nobody. It's not even the lesser of two evils. It's just there's nobody to vote for. So
Hey, Diana, if I may,
independent?
Diana, what is the socialism, as you call it, that turns you off that's being proposed by Kamala Harris?
Oh, please.
No, that's why I asked you.
So-
Like what, for example?
Okay. Well, there's so many programs.
Well, name a couple. Name a couple.
The immigration situation where you can come to this country, not be vetted, but be able to get a driver's license.
Diana, do you know, excuse me, two things. One, driver's licenses are decisions made by states. And number two, there's the lowest level of border crossing since the Biden executive order about a month ago in years. Do you know that? Lowest level.
Well, no, I get, numbers, okay. Also, do you know that she is in favor of, or shall I say the Democrats, in favor of taxing unrealized capital gains?
Yeah.
I'm okay. If they do that, are they going to also give us unrealized losses?
Well, by the way, that I know since you brought it up, ultimately you're going to pay a tax there. The issue is, do you pay it, as you say, when it's unrealized? I would say, even if you disagree with the policy, and I totally respect your position, I have to say, I would say she's a moderate to liberal candidate, and I don't know what anybody fairly would describe as socialism. But we respect your position. Diana, thank you for the call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970. Let's see if Derek's connection is. You have something?
I just want to say socialism keeps getting thrown around in this race all the time, and I think it's a misunderstanding of we are nowhere close to socialism in the United States, and anyone is proposing is anything close. I mean, you could say Social Security is socialism, I suppose.
I don't think that's a Kamala Harris thing. I think it was started 100 years ago.
I think people like
90 years ago.
that they get Social Security. I mean, you could say that, or you could say
Medicare, same deal.
Medicare,
most popular
socialism.
program in America.
Yeah, so I think that there's a great
Public schools,
misunderstanding of what it means. Derek in the car, thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi, guys. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. I think what's appealing about Kamala Harris is that she's not Trump. And people are tired of the clown show. People are tired of the comedy act. He's kind of old now. He's not funny any longer. It's just getting tired, and it's just ridiculous. He's a 7-year-old kid. I mean, he has. I don't understand it. He has nothing to offer, but the cult is just so strong. That's pretty much all he has right now. It's the cult who's riding for him till the wheels fall off.
Before you go away, Margery, you said, this relates to what Derek was saying. You heard somebody coming out of a polling place or an election meeting a few months ago, and a reporter said, "What are you looking for?" He says, "I want a normal person."
Oh, yeah.
And you do
return to normalcy.
And there is, you do get a sense from Harris and clearly from Walz, but I think both of them, these are fairly normal people, and no one would describe Donald Trump and his show, as Derek calls it, as abnormal. And I think when that alternative is there, Derek, I agree with you. I think it's very appealing to put a 78-year-old guy who is a misogynist and often a racist and clearly a liar in the rearview mirror. Derek, thanks for calling. We appreciate it. By the way, one of our colleagues, I think Jamie, was kind enough in response to Diana's call. Here's Axios' analysis of taxation of unrealized capital gains. This would affect a small subset of America's wealthiest people, and most tech founders and investors would be spared, says Axios. It applies only to individuals with at least $100 million in wealth who do not pay at least a 25% tax rate on their income. Far better explanation than mine, and I hope you consider that, Diana.
And by the way, there's been a couple of stories over the weekend about how these big tech entrepreneurs and a lot of people out in Silicon Valley and stuff are pressuring her not to do this. And you got to say, if you got $100 million in wealth,
you're probably paying a little more.
I don't have a lot of sympathy for your travails in terms of, because the tax system obviously is so skewed toward the wealthy and not toward the middle class or toward working class. The other thing is about Kamala Harris. She's finally talking about something that Biden was so bad about. When you say, okay, the unemployment rate is X and, the inflation's coming down and all that kind of stuff, she's talking about the day-to-day, everything is so expensive. And I don't know, the federal government, there was an awful story in the Globe over the weekend about some of the housing projects in Boston being filled with mold and the ceilings in the bathroom, and people are getting sick from the mold. The federal government used to invest big in those kinds of things, and they don't anymore. And part of the reason we're in such a mess with housing, not all of it, obviously, but part of it is the federal government getting out of the support they used to give. I mean, it's really disgraceful.
Well, Healy's housing bond bill, I think I have the number right, has $200 million in improvements and fixing of public housing, which is a huge thing.
It is huge, but I think that she is talking about those kinds of things, and Biden didn't talk about them enough, if you ask me.
877-301-8970. We're talking about where you are on the state of the race with 9 weeks to go till the election is over.
Eric in East Boston, thank you for calling.
Hi, Eric. Thanks for the call.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good.
Fine, thanks.
So I am an independent voter. I will be voting for Trump, and I think Trump is going to win.
Why are you voting for Trump?
A number of reasons. We've spoken in the past, but my big three are the border, Ukraine, and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about Israel? Because Trump, as you know, has been very friendly toward Israel, toward Netanyahu. Is that what you think we should be doing over there?
I do. I'm Israel friendly. So I think actually when Trump gets in, I think he's going to basically kind of let them do whatever they want to do at the end.
And you're okay with there are 40,000 dead Palestinians. You're okay with that?
It's a war. People get killed.
Eric, before you go away, you said immigration is one of your top three issues, and we do appreciate you calling back. You are aware that a very, very conservative proposal from a Republican senator from Oklahoma that would have addressed the immigration situation on Republican terms was supported by the Democrats and Joe Biden and was killed because Donald Trump said to his sycophants, don't do this. You're going to take an issue away from me during the election. How do you, by the way, that's not disputed by anybody. How do you react to that? There would have been a fix on Donald Trump's terms had Donald Trump not ordered these cowardly elected officials to kill it.
Yeah, I'll say two things to that. First of all, for 3.5 years, the Democrats did nothing on the border, and now it's election year, they're looking into it. And secondly, the issue, if you really read it, it's not a great bill. I mean, the numbers they were going to let across are in the thousands every day. It's a huge issue.
It was proposed before I continue, it was proposed by a guy from Oklahoma who is about as tough on immigration as any human on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's true.
I think and that's fine, but I also think the Republicans play a role in the border being open as well.
Okay. All right, Eric, stay in touch with us. We appreciate your call, 877-301-8970.
By the way, the numbers have really gone down, too, since that bill went into effect.
Not the bill, his executive order.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Whatever
You said that. Yeah, it's gone down dramatically.
Okay, let's go to...
Let's take a break.
Oh, we're going to take a break. Okay, we are talking about the election that is 9 weeks away. How are you feeling about things? Are you pro-Trump? Are you pro-Kamala Harris? Jim mentioned some of the wacky things that the former president has done. Are you worried about those as well? The number is 877-301-8970.
GBH News investigates.
A state report showed 85% of the small claims court docket last year was filed for debt collection.
These courts were created to allow individuals to have their day in court without process.
But critics say
these sophisticated companies are using it to steamroll people.
Companies come to court with lawyers, while for many low-income consumers,
I don't have a legal representation. I can't fight the system.
I'm Jennifer McKim. This story today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Rockland Trust Bank, dedicated to providing advice and support to the community for over 115 years. More at rocklandtrust.com. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC.
And M&M Skylights, located in Stoneham, installing and servicing a wide range of Velux skylights that can help bring air and more natural light into your home. You can learn more and schedule a skylight consultation at mmskylights.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim, Browdy, and Margery again, finally back, as is our wonderful team. We're live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Thursday, yes. In Brighton, we're joined by Senator Elizabeth Warren in the 1 o'clock hour. And in the 1 o'clock hour for the whole hour on Friday, the governor, Maura Healey, will be with us here at the Boston Public Library. It's a political, grab bag. Couldn't help ourselves. We're back from vacation. And that means Boston Politics Radio is plugged back in with the presidential debate exactly a week away. How are you engaging? Are you waiting as long as humanly possible? Our election cycles are like basketball games. To some, you only need to pay attention in the last couple of minutes. Give us a buzz or text us. I don't buy that, by the way, but a lot of people do. 877-301-8970. A reminder, speaking of elections, we have a new daily segment that we will do at the end of the 12 o'clock hour, driven by your texts in the first 2 hours. Did you remember it's primary election day? Are you voting? Secretary of State expects something like 15% turnout. Margery thinks it's not bad. I think it's pathetic, but it is typical for this kind of election. We all complain. Again, the state legislature has done virtually nothing. Are we to blame when we don't vote and nobody runs? 877-301-8970 for those texts, too.
We have a lot of texters who know an awful lot about the thing about taking away the unrealized stock gains.
Yeah.
I have about 8 or 10 of them they're pointing out that's only for people that are worth $100 million or more. I'm not sure if the woman who called was aware that was what they were talking about. Judy from Belmont says she just drove down from rural Maine and saw many, many Harris Wall signs, and she's feeling kind of optimistic. Somebody else says we have to remember the most important thing in any presidential election, the Supreme Court justices. And Trump has a new term now. He's a weaver. He's not. This is when he's been criticized for kind of jumping all over the place.
Rambling in his speeches.
Yeah, rambling. He's not weaving. And one of our texters says, "Welcome back. Thanks for asking my opinion. Trump refers to his meandering talks now. He is a weaving genius." If Harris said one of the things he says, like Minnesota is executing babies on the delivery table, he has said this so many times that people, that the pro-choice side wants to execute babies after they're born. Needless to say, that is not happening, but he's probably repeated that, 100 times? And some people apparently
said it last week.
Believe it.
Yeah.
That is
We've
not
had people
happening.
repeat that kind of line. So we
Yeah.
did. 877-301-8970. And by the way, he may be weaving, but he's not campaigning. J.D. Vance last week in Boston, by the way, at the firefighters' national meeting where he was booed by some, said there's never been a Republican administration better to workers than him, but he was nowhere to be found, he being Trump, on Labor Day yesterday.
Right.
And I don't think he's got a campaign event till later this week, which lends credence to the articles that have been written by a number of people and analysts saying he isn't preparing to win an election, he's preparing to contest the outcome of the election. That's where, because otherwise, why is he not out all the time?
I don't know.
Campaigning. I just
and
don't get it.
the more you hear about J.D. Vance, there was another piece about his being on podcast something 3 or 4 years ago, deriding working mothers, which is just so interesting because his own wife, mother of 3, was working full time at a law firm, and you're working a lot of hours at a law firm. It's not exactly, a 20-hour-a-week job until he announced for vice president. So he's running around talking about how terrible it is and miserable these women are that are working full time, and the woman he's supposedly in love with, the mother of his children, was working full time. I mean, what do you make of
Also
that?
doesn't mention men, I assume you noticed, professional men who are working full time, who have children. Lauren in Marblehead, thank you for calling the show. We really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Good morning. I hope you guys had a lovely holiday, but you were missed.
Oh, so
thank
nice.
you. That's nice of you to say.
What's up, Lauren?
Yes. So I am a full-on Harris supporter.
Mm-hmm.
And very excited and very hopeful since, of course, Biden stepped down as much as I adore him and feel rather bad for Joe. But as I go out into the world, and here we are in Massachusetts, one of the most democratic, a state full of, God, I'm tired today, I'm sorry.
Democrats,
yeah. Democratic.
Yeah.
Democrats, oh my God. a really large amount of people aren't as on board as I suspected and actually wavering and considering not voting at all.
Why are they what are they wavering about, the people you've encountered there, Lauren?
You know that whole Hillary thing, I just don't like her, so I'm not going to vote.
Huh.
A lot of that.
I have to say,
I'm perplexed.
Doesn't it drive you crazy, Lauren? I think it's such a thing about women. I mean,
obviously
it is such a sexist, and we have to all like these women. And boy, it's tough.
But are you seeing what, Lauren? I have to say, the polling, and polling is not be all end all. The enthusiasm amongst Democratic voters, which was in the toilet, and I apologize, but it is true because I feel the same way about Joe Biden. You do. At the end of the Biden administration, as compared to the explosion of enthusiasm, at least in the polling, amongst Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters, Lauren, is really high. So I'm sort of surprised that you're hearing what you're hearing.
And they say they don't like her. Why, Lauren? Does anybody specify, or is it just sort of a fuzzy feeling?
And believe it or not, some of these are women.
Yeah.
Why, when I ask them, I get one guy says, well, she hasn't really come out on the positions for A, B, and C. And I said to him, you know what? She walked into this 3 weeks ago. She had to choose a VP, and she had to prepare for the DNC. So I imagine she's a little busy, and she's getting there. Like, Rome was not created in a day. So, and yet, it's you and I know the three of us all agree, any shortcomings, any imperfections she may have, pale in comparison to what we're up against with Trump. But what I'm finding is a lot of people have checked out, so they don't really understand the dangerous political landscape at the moment. And
Lauren, it's not just the people with whom you speak. One of the things that I have never been tolerant of are people who say, I'm just not going to vote. I mean, by the way, we had this back and forth with Governor Baker, for whom we have a lot of respect, who told us month after month he would not vote for Trump, to his credit, but wasn't going to vote at all, which I think is a really irresponsible act in a democracy, particularly a democracy that I think one can fairly say is hanging by a thread. Lauren, thanks for your report. Call us in a few weeks and tell us if any of those friends or colleagues are making decisions in either direction about the race. We'd like an update. 877-301-8970.
I'm always surprised, and maybe because I'm too worried about it, but that more people don't worry about climate problems if Trump is reelected. See that front page story over the weekend about the sludge as fertilizer that's been dumped all over farmlands?
Yeah.
And by the way, the EPA was wrong about that, to recommend that years ago. But in their defense, I think part of the reason they recommended it because they didn't realize that the sludge is going to be full of those forever chemicals. So it's killing, these forever chemicals are killing the cattle. They're shutting down the farms. They're probably poisoning food that everybody eats. And every day you have another, the number of floods and fires and fish deaths and all this kind of stuff. The people aren't more worried about that. Parts of the ocean down the Cape are too polluted to swim in this summer. The lakes too polluted to swim in. He's going to roll back, I think, as many of the climate initiatives that Biden has put forward as he can.
Well, it's beyond policy matters where there obviously are, gaping differences, I think, on almost everything. Isn't there a certain level of morality and decency that people want in those who represent them? From the racist comments at the National Association of Black Journalists to the comments about sex acts benefiting, in one case, Harris and hurting Clinton, to the behavior, which we'll discuss with Sue O'Connell, at Arlington National Cemetery. There is virtually nobody, almost nobody, who this guy is not willing to treat like crap.
I know, but you get into trouble when you make that argument, because I think that we decided that morality and decency didn't really matter in the Bill Clinton era. And I think that we could have done without Bill Clinton, frankly, the Democratic National Convention. So I think, clearly the Democrats have forgiven a guy who had a very shaky record on decency. So I guess...
Would you compare, by the way, you and I both find Bill Clinton to have been credibly accused of rape. We've said this a lot on the show.
Broderick.
And it is not only inexcusable, but particularly a disqualifier for the presidency.
We didn't know this, by the way, when we elected him the second time.
Have you ever seen anything like Donald Trump?
No, Donald Trump is a whole new level of grifting.
It's not grifting. By the way, it's almost, I didn't even, the fact that his daughter and son-in-law made hundreds of millions while they were working in the White House with no experience.
Saudi Arabia.
Him making money in violation of the emoluments. It's almost secondary or
his
tertiary.
His $25 million fine for screwing all the students at Trump University. It goes on and on and on.
It's how he treats, and we haven't mentioned today, found civilly liable for the equivalent of rape of E. Jean Carroll, which apparently doesn't matter to 70 million people either. In any case, we're done with this for now, but obviously we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it throughout the day and in the weeks ahead.
Okay, coming up, we're going to be speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor reporter for NBC Sports Boston. We're going to talk about Karen Reed, their supporters. They're going national now, in a couple of cases, actually international.
That's with Sue O'Connell, too, at noon.
Oh, is that the wrong thing?
That is
Whoops,
the wrong thing.
Forget that. We're not going to talk about Karen Reed yet. You have to wait till noontime. With Trenni Casey, we're talking about the Paralympics in Paris, the Patriots' new season, and Angel Reese and Caitlin Collins, the new season in the WNBA and other sports news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Next time on The World, 2 German states held elections this past weekend, and all eyes were on the far-right Alternative for Germany party. The party's top candidate has made regular appearances in court in recent months on charges of using Nazi slogans while campaigning. We look at what happened in those elections and what it means for Germany on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the MBTA commuter rail, providing public transportation service to over 170 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain. And Comcast, offering Xfinity Internet, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. More information at xfinity.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery are live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. We are back here tomorrow on Thursday in Brighton. Senator Warren joins us. And Friday, it is Ask the Governor. Maura Healey joins us from 1 to 2. If I can say something before I introduce Trenni. I just got 3 texts during the first 2 segments about why we're not talking about the murder of Carmel Gott and one of the 6 people murdered by Hamas a couple of days ago. We have had relatives of Carmel on twice, including the husband of Yarden, who obviously was in captivity for 57 days. We're working really hard to see if some of them will join us tomorrow or the next day. And if they do, we'd like them to speak to it. And if they don't, we will hear. In any case, we're joined now at the library by Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Trenni, it's nice to see you.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Trenni Casey. And by the way, the basketball star is not Caitlin Collins, as I just called her. She's Caitlin Clark.
Oh, you're watching a lot of CNN these days.
Exactly.
That's right. We'll get to her in just a second. So let's start with one of the most upsetting stories in a long time. These 2 wonderful hockey players that spent a lot of time at Boston College, and one of them in the NHL, killed riding their bicycles by an alleged drunk driver.
Yeah, I mean, just that in and of itself, just the headline is upsetting. But the more you read into the story and the more you read about the guys, it's like just when you think the story can't get worse, it gets worse. So Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau both played college hockey at Boston College. Johnny Gaudreau went on to play professionally. He most recently played for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Very good player. His brother was a coach, played in the AHL, so on the like semi-professional level, minor league professional level. And then went back to the New Jersey area to be a coach. They were back home in New Jersey for their sister's wedding. They were to be groomsmen in her wedding on Friday.
Yeah.
Thursday, they were leaving the rehearsal, welcome dinner. They were riding bikes down a county country road, 2-lane highway, with traffic in the bike area, in the breakdown lane, which is where you're supposed to ride as a cyclist. And there was a driver who admitted to police that he had 5 to 6 beers, which means he probably had vastly more, because if you say 5 to 6, you probably had 10 to 12. And he was driving erratically. He was going around. He almost got into a head-on collision when he tried to pass cars on the left-hand side, and then he was getting frustrated with the car in front of him that moved to the side to make room for the Gaudreaus, and he went around them, hit them both from behind, and they were killed. Johnny Gaudreau was married.
Did you know him, by the way? Everybody says one of the most beyond
They
talent.
say I didn't, because I don't really cover a lot of hockey.
See, okay.
So I didn't know him, but everyone that you talk to who does say they were incredible young men. They were, Johnny was 30, Matthew was 29. Johnny was married with 2 young children. Matthew was recently married. His wife is due with their first child in December. So when I tell you the story, it just gets worse and worse. And it's just, listen, we have Ubers. I don't understand why people drink and drive anymore. I don't understand it. I don't get it. You can get Ubers anywhere in the world. You do not need to, like 2 innocent young men are dead because some guy has clearly some impatience and anger issues, but one behind the wheel, and was compounded by him drinking. It's just a tragic, terrible story and a huge loss in the sports world.
We're talking to Trenni Casey. So Trenni, it's a hard transition when you talk about the death of 2 wonderful, wildly young people. But the biggest sports team in town, I hope this doesn't offend anybody, the New England Patriots are about to start next week. And Margery asked me this morning, and I figure you're a much better person to answer. They picked this guy, Drake May, number 3.
Yep. Right.
A lot of the rookie quarterbacks who were drafted along with him, including the 2 ahead of him, 1 and 2, are starting for their teams on opening day. Drake May will not be starting. It's sort of a journeyman guy who's been around a long time, 8 or 9 years.
Jacoby Brissett.
Will, why is Drake May not starting?
Honestly, I think this was the plan all along, and it was a plan that most people agreed with. Most, pundits like myself, or even like the Tommy Currans and the Phil Perrys of the world, the Albert Breers who watch football, night in and night out. Everybody seemed to feel that he was a little bit of a project, a lot of raw skills, big arm, athleticism. A lot of people compare him to Josh Allen, who is the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, also very raw, coming out of Wyoming. Drake May didn't go to a big college. He went to North Carolina. He was young coming out, just 20 years old. I don't think anybody has a problem with him sitting to start. I mean, if you want to draft and develop this kid, that's probably the right path. And they're also now run by Elliott Wolf, whose father was Ron Wolf, and was in charge of the Packers for a very long time. And I think they look at the way that the Packers have developed and drafted their quarterbacks. You traded for Brett Favre, and then you drafted Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers sat behind Brett Favre. And then when Brett Favre was done, Aaron Rodgers took over. While Aaron Rodgers was still a perfectly capable quarterback, they drafted Jordan Love, and Jordan Love sat for 3 years, and then he started. The problem here is you're not starting behind Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
So I don't. The methodology, I don't think anyone has a problem with. I think the issue is that somehow, some way, they decided to paint this as a quarterback competition over the summer. And Drake May did perform better than Jacoby Brissett. He looks like the better quarterback right now. And yet you still have Jerod Mayo saying it's a competition, and then Alex Van Pelt, who's the new offensive coordinator, basically saying, yeah, well, coach says it's a competition, but everybody kind of knows that it's just, I think what's frustrating
Margery
for
looks
everybody.
pained, that's why I'm laughing.
Well, to distill it down, I think why everyone's frustrated is because they massively screwed up the last quarterback that they drafted and screwed up the process, and it sounds like they're not on the same page for this one either. And that Alex Van Pelt did win out, and they're going to sit Drake May, which I think, again, is the right decision, but it's like, do you have to lie and feed us a bunch of lies? Like, just
you okay with that, Margery, or not?
Just kind of feels like a little like free for all down there.
Let me preface this by saying I know nothing, except I heard some guy on TV that sounded like he did know what he was talking about, saying the real problem is the offensive line is so lousy.
The offensive line is horrible.
That they don't want to get this poor kid crushed before. Well, that's how they were portraying it, and they've drafted or hired bad linemen, which doesn't seem like a good idea.
Well, I mean, they have not signed. They don't sign linemen. They had an opportunity to go out and pay an offensive lineman this offseason. They have more than enough money in free agency. They just didn't. They tried to spend it. They just couldn't spend it on wide receivers, and it doesn't seem like they tried to sign it. What they really need is a left tackle. Their offensive line is an absolute mess. So I think that's another good reason to hold Drake May back. And I'm not even as worried about him getting crushed. Like, he'll probably get sacked a lot, but he is more athletic than Jacoby Brissett. So he can move around and at least create some plays with his legs. But the problem then becomes, does he fall into these bad habits and never really develop good ones to be the best quarterback he can be? It's honestly, the Patriots are just still kind of a mess, and I think everyone is wondering, like, all of a sudden next week will we look at this team and go, boy, they look like a mess all preseason, but all of a sudden now things are coming together, or are we going to be like, oh, this is worse than we thought, everybody?
So do you want to comment on the left tackle situation, Margery, or no?
Apparently the left tackle can't tackle.
Okay, no, not can't tackle, can't block. So a couple of more things on the Patriots.
Block.
Or former Patriots. I believe this
Although I think it does help to be able to tackle as well. Doesn't it help to be able to tackle?
No, if you tackle,
you want to block.
it's illegal. He can't tackle. The tackle can't tackle.
Yeah, you want your left tackle to prevent the defensive end
from
tackling your quarterback.
I prefaced it by saying that I didn't. Well, apparently it's a big problem.
Why do you care about it?
Because I thought I'd add that to the commentary.
Oh, you did?
Prefacing it by saying, I know nothing.
Okay.
To Marjorie's point about being concerned about the offensive line, they might get Jacoby Brissett crushed. And then all of a sudden, this kid that they want to sit in Drake May, if all of a sudden he's starting week 2, and then today, Gerard Mayo said, Drake May's 1,000% ready to start in week 2. Well, if he's ready to start in week 2, why isn't he starting in week 1? What is happening down there?
If you ask one more question about left tackle, I'm going to scream.
I'm just going to say that I do believe that one of Tom Brady's problems was not enough protection in this last couple of seasons with the Patriots.
You are correct. Also not enough weapons.
I'm serious. I mean, what are you talking about? Really?
Margery can read and dissect and understand.
Okay, since you're a Tom Brady expert, he's about to be an announcer. What's the issue with Tom Brady right now, Margery?
He's trying to buy some other team, and so there's some controversy about his being
trying to become some minority owner.
This is a problem. He's going to be a
$30
million a year commentator, and he can't do any of the things that normal commentators go, like go to team meetings, interview players, all the preparatory stuff.
Can't go to any practices.
Because he's bidding for a 10% ownership stake in the Las Vegas Raiders. In all seriousness, as skillful as he is, not as a commentator, he's obviously never done it before, how can you do your job without talking to the people that everybody talks to prepare?
I mean, he can't even go to like production meetings.
Right.
That's the other thing. He can't go to like Fox production meetings, which are, you think they're not important, but production meetings are actually quite important. You sort of figure out like the time flow, especially for a new broadcaster. Like we have meetings every single day before every one of our shows, a production meeting to go over the flow of the show. Listen, obviously the flow of a game is different, but you still have flows of like, it's just, I think this could end up, again, talk about things just being a disaster. That could be ended up being a disaster. This could be a real bad.
We had a 3-hour.
Hold on. Maybe if we had a production meeting every day, things would go more smoothly here at
No, I can tell you what the
Radio.
problem is. We had a 3-hour production meeting this morning. You, me, Jamie, Hannah, everybody else, all you wanted to talk about was left tackle. I mean, no wonder we're unprepared for the show. One last thing about the Patriots before we move on to something.
Why wouldn't you think that a left tackle would tackle?
Okay, because they don't tackle.
They don't tackle.
Okay.
Okay, the defensive ones. What are the defensive ones?
Defensive tackles.
Okay, that was my problem. Offense versus defense.
Okay, fine. So
someone just texted Jim and they said Margery reporting on sports should be its own station. I would listen to that all day.
Yeah.
So there.
Okay, that's one person. Okay, now here is Javon Baker, who I think is a 4th-round draft choice, 4th receiver. Here's his Instagram live stream when he was at Logan complaining about a cop who was giving him a traffic ticket. Here it is.
He didn't even pull up with no lights on. He just walked up on me like, "Come on, bro. Like, who you think you is? Because you got a police officer that they don't mean nothing, bro. With my tax dollars, I pay you. Like, come on, bro. You work for me."
Now, I'm not sure who would have taped that and broadcast that, but having said that or streamed it, I have to say, if it was Terminal C, I understand what his concerns are. I'm serious. It can be tough there.
It can be tough in Terminal C.
Oh, yeah.
That's the JetBlue terminal, right?
No.
I believe. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
It
Terminal
is. Thank
C
you,
is
Aiden.
JetBlue.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
You can't even stop to let somebody out most
I know.
of the time.
I will say, I think I understand Javon Baker's frustration with picking up and dropping someone, picking someone up or dropping them off at the airport. If you sit for even the littlest bit of time, you've got somebody knocking on your window telling you have to move. However, Javon Baker, that is the world we live in post 9/11. Maybe you've never picked someone up from the airport before. I'm not sure. But all you do is you drive and you circle and you text that person and say, the state trooper told me I have to move. So I'm moving. I'll circle around and I'll keep circling around until you get there. You do not live stream it and then complain.
No, you have to,
because there were already, notes on this guy before he got drafted that about his attitude and the way he carried himself and that he could sometimes be a problem child. And now now we heard last week from some people who are down at camp that while everybody else is doing extra work, he's sitting on his helmet and he's watching. Like, you can't do that.
This guy was good enough to be drafted in the 4th round. We don't have time to play the other tape.
He's the one who said that people in wheelchairs stand up when they see him.
Is that
play.
so? I didn't hear that. Did you mention the other tape that we don't have time for?
What are you talking about?
What the tape from Javon, whatever his name is. What else he said? He said, this is like a football player who's quoted saying, I don't understand why left tackles don't tackle. I mean, thank you very much. Now, we're going to discuss the
Even I didn't know where that was going.
We're going to discuss the thing I really care most about. The fact that the National Football League is not requiring, I repeat, mandating that every player wear these Guardian helmets on top. They look weird. They don't fit the MO, the manly, whatever. Explain what a Guardian helmet is and what it does to protect a football player.
So a Guardian helmet is an additional piece. It's like, it almost sort of looks like, I don't know how much rugby you guys watch during the Olympics, but rugby players will they look like these little almost like textured swim caps. And they go on top of your head and they're padded. And in rugby, you don't wear any helmets at all, but it helps certain positions sort of protect their head. The NFL has added these for training camps and required certain players to wear them during training camp practices to limit the blows, or at least the intensity of the blows to the head, even though really you don't tackle much in practice. They are not making it mandatory for these players to wear these same Guardian helmet. It's like almost like a slip cover that goes over your helmet. Yeah. But there is a player, and now his name is escaping me, who has come out publicly on his Instagram page and said, I'm going to wear this. I need to protect my brain. I'm not going to play football forever. And he said there are guys in his locker room who simply aren't wearing this additional protection for their head because they don't think it looks cool.
Kylan Granson.
What are we doing? It doesn't look cool. It's like, what doesn't look cool? When you can't find your words anymore and you're drooling down your face at 40 because you've taken so many blows to the head. The problem, Jim, in requiring it, and this, is it comes down to the CBA was negotiated a long time ago. It is not in the CBA. It is not in the collective bargaining agreement. They are unions, and you cannot tell adults, I don't think, without a union agreement that you have to wear a
But I haven't heard. I understand that I haven't heard the union object at all. What I've heard from the pathetic leadership of the NFL that there are other alternative helmets that are protecting as much. It's not just. We have seen so many players, including people like Junior Seau, maybe Aaron Hernandez as well.
I think they did test him. I think his brain was riddled with CTE.
Why don't, if the league really wants it, even if the union has to negotiate, which they should, why don't they publicly say, we want to mandate this. We want the union to be our partner. I think the only reason they're not doing it, I don't know this, the only reason they're not doing it is because it doesn't look as fearsome as football play. It looks odd at first if you haven't seen it, but it's going to protect their heads and their families. And as this Granson guy says, I want to spend my life with my wife and my children and know who they are.
I'm going to be honest. My bigger issue wasn't with the NFL here. It was like, I cannot believe that there are still football players out there who worry more about how cool they look
I'm with you.
than whether or not they're protecting their brain. I just don't understand it.
So do you want to know what I did 2 nights ago?
Watch the Paralympics?
Nope. I was on YouTube watching Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. I mean, it is, and by the way, we looked it up this morning. It was 1979, 45 years ago, when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came in the league. I didn't remember. Jamie looked it up. Larry Bird won Rookie of the Year. These are two of the greatest rookie basketball players in the history of basketball.
And they have really come on strong in the second half. Like, remember, we were having conversations in the first couple of weeks of the WNBA season, that maybe Caitlin Clark's game wasn't going to match up.
Yeah.
She was going to get, both literally and figuratively getting pushed around on the court. She has now set the rookie record for assists. She's like the first rookie to have 25 points and 10 assists in back-to-back games. Angel Reese just broke a long-standing, like almost a 20-year record, I believe, for rebound.
Not rookies, but all players,
all
right?
players in the WNBA.
Yeah.
And listen, it's having a trickle-down effect. Like, you're seeing ratings in the WNBA, attendance, it's all up. Like, everything that people were hoping for from this Caitlin Clark effect has definitely been happening.
Well, I want to squeeze in because it sounds like, from what I've seen, they've been really stopping the Paralympics. They're over there.
Have you guys watched? They're phenomenal.
Yeah,
I watched some. I watched not bow and arrow. What's that called? Archery.
Archery.
Which was great.
Tell us about this. This is a great story in the New York Times about the quiet collaborations, the headline between the athletes and their assistants. This was really neat.
Yes, I was actually watching a 1,500-meter race over the weekend, and it was kind of back of the pack, but you noticed there were some runners running with a guide. When you watch swimming events, you see some people holding the feet of the athletes, or if they don't have legs or feet, helping athletes into the ground and putting something around them to hold them in place until the competition starts. What I didn't know until reading this article is that for certain para athletes, you have like an assistant basically who helps guide you when you're a runner and holds on to a tether. But there's also cycling races where the sighted person is in the front and the blind person is in the back, and the sighted person is the navigator, and they work in conjunction. And in certain events, the assistant to the athlete gets a medal as well.
Yeah.
And it just talks about the synchronicity that needs to happen. And a lot of times they don't even say anything to each other. They can just sort of sense and feel what the athlete needs in that moment, whether they need, and you can't adjust. Like, there are certain things you cannot do. Like, actually, an Australian lost a bronze because they let go of the tether too soon. So there are very strict rules on how you have to compete, with an assistant. But I'm telling you, so one of the anchors I worked with, she was on the 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. CNBC shift. She's a para-athlete, swimming. Mallory Wegman, she set a para-Olympic record over the weekend in the 400 individual medley. She's a new mom. She's breastfeeding. She's training. She's an incredible person, an incredible athlete. And to watch, these are athletes. They may have, not the same abilities as an Olympic athlete, but these are people who put in, similar to Olympic athletes, long, hard training hours, very little money, having to put their lives on hold and dedicate themselves for every 4 years to get through this cycle. And it's so... and in some of the events, you can't always see the disability, and it's fascinating to learn the backstories of these athletes and what they went through and what they endured to get to this point, and who they were sometimes before, and who they are after.
Oh, there's some beautiful stories. Trenni, it's great to see you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Trenni Casey. We have been speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a Boston Public Radio contributor. After the new news, I'll get it right this time, our media maven Sue O'Connell is going to be with us. Karen Reed, people may know about that. That is a trial of the woman accused of running over her former boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Well, her fans have gone from local to national, in some cases international. And we're also going to talk about Lara Trump's singing debut. Play a little sound of the former president's daughter-in-law singing. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. It's live from the Boston Public Library and streaming online.
to your community.
They're busier than ever at the Immigrant Family Services Institute in Mattapan.
GBH News sticks with the story.
As providers, we cannot say to a child, mom with a baby, go and stay in the street. We cannot.
Healy's spokesperson said Massachusetts is out of shelter space and cannot afford to support the current number of families seeking aid.
GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass Humanities. You can register for the 2024 Governor's Awards in the Humanities on September 26th at the JFK Library. Honorees include Martín Espada, Jackie Jennings Scott, Bob Rivers, and Cheryl Tony Hawley. MassHumanities.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Ranked number 1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday.
To make sure their votes get counted. NPR's Hansi-Lo Wang has more.
The first batch of absentee ballots for the general election are set to go out starting Friday to registered voters in North Carolina who asked for them. For voting seasons, the Postal Service has what it calls an extraordinary measures policy that instructs its workers to place postmarks on all mail-in ballots. That policy is set to go into effect in late October. But Adrienne Marshall, the Postal Service's Director of Election Mail Services, acknowledges that not every returned ballot may get a postmark.
If a voter wants to ensure that their ballot receives a postmark, they can walk into any one of our over 32,000 facilities, request a postmark as long as we take custody of that piece once we do.
In some states, election officials check for postmarks as proof that a ballot was mailed on time. Hansi-Lo Wang, NPR News.
A former aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul has been arrested, according to a statement from the Department of Justice, Eastern District of New York. Says Linda Sun and her husband Chris Hu have been charged with violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, and other crimes. Sun and Hu were arrested this morning. They're scheduled to be arraigned later today. According to her LinkedIn page, Sun's career included ties to former Assemblywoman Grace Meng, who is now in Congress, as well as to the Cuomo and Hochul administrations in New York. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will not bend to pressure to reach a ceasefire deal that would see Israel withdraw from Gaza's border with Egypt. His speech followed a general strike in Israel and massive protests calling for him to accept a deal. NPR's David Altshuler has the latest.
In a press conference that lasted almost 40 minutes, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu started by asking the hostage families for forgiveness for not bringing their loved ones home alive. On Sunday, the Israeli military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from Gaza. Hamas took responsibility for killing them days before the military could rescue them. Netanyahu then doubled down, saying he would not accept a ceasefire deal if it required Israeli troops to leave the Philadelphia corridor on Gaza's border with Egypt, which he calls a lifeline for Hamas's weapons smuggling. The Israeli security establishment wants Netanyahu to accept the deal on the table now. David Altshuler, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Mongolia is facing scathing criticism from Ukraine and its allies for rolling out the red carpet for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mongolia is a member of the International Criminal Court. Last year, the ICC issued a warrant for Putin's arrest. Mongolia and Russia have remained friendly despite Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. U.S. stocks are down sharply. The Dow and S&P have fallen more than 1%. The Nasdaq is down 2.4%. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Many in the local Jewish community are mourning the killings of 6 Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Their bodies were found this weekend. Rabbi Rick Jacobs is president of the Union for Reform Judaism, which represents more than 2 million Jews across the country, including thousands here in Massachusetts. He tells GBH News that he blames Hamas for the hostages' murders and the Israeli government for failing to get them back.
I've been meeting with hostage families. They are furious. Many Israelis across the political spectrum say 11 months in the tunnels held captive is too long. And the longer we wait, the less likely we will bring any of those hostages home alive. And there's a weariness here in America as well.
Jacobs is calling for an end to the war in Gaza. The trial of former state senator and one-time congressional candidate Dean Tran begins today in federal court in Boston. Tran is accused of illegally collecting unemployment benefits during the COVID pandemic and failing to report rental income to the IRS. According to court records, the 48-year-old Tran of Fitchburg served in the state Senate from 2017 until January 2021. He pleaded not guilty to 25 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of filing false tax returns at his arraignment last November. In an interview last night, he again denied the charges and claimed the U.S. Attorney's Office and federal investigators hold a political bias against him because he leans to the right politically. 69 degrees, this is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Made in Cookware. Made in Cookware is crafted by chefs for use in restaurants and home kitchens around the world. Their cookware can be found at madeincookware.com. This is NPR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On Thursday, we're going to be joined in the studio in Brighton by Senator Elizabeth Warren, but we're going to be back here tomorrow and Friday. And on Friday, it is Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. She'll be taking our questions and yours from 1 to 2. And Jim doesn't like this when I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. You do not need any tickets. You don't need to RSVP.
Nobody thinks you need tickets.
It's free. You just come down here to the library and stay as little or as long
Did anybody
as you
here
like.
think you needed a ticket to come?
Well, they're
Anybody?
already here,
You did?
so they know. Okay, there you go.
Oh, my God.
There you go.
So
you see?
sad.
No tickets needed. I think some people might be very grateful that I'm saying that, Jim.
I think he did it because he likes
Okay.
you. He raised his hand.
Okay.
That's the only reason. That's why you did it, right? Tell the truth.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank
Okay,
you.
Jim, go ahead.
No, you're not. Well, okay, before we get to our next guest, we're doing something new on the show every day starting today. We have a GBH and NPR newscast at 1. We ordinarily did not. You wanted it, you're getting it. And a new segment at the end of this noon hour driven by your text. You text us at 877-301-8970. In addition to whatever you're texting about during the show, we pick a topic. We let you know it at 11 o'clock, or I think we're going to even tweet it out before. I'm not sure. Today's is, did you remember that it's primary election day in Massachusetts? Are you voting? The Secretary of State expects something like only 15% to turn out. And when we all complain, at least we do, that the state legislature has done virtually nothing, or at least not enough, are we to blame if we don't participate in a democracy? Again, you can text those for the next 45 minutes, 877-301-8970. We're joined now by Sue O'Connell. Sue is the co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, co-host with Corey Smith of NBC 10 Boston's At Issue every Sunday at 11:30 following Meet the Press. She has just returned from 5 days in hell, known to some of you as Disney World. Welcome home. I'm glad you made it. Thank you very much.
Yes, we love Disney World.
There's
Well,
something
that's
really wrong. You and your
Disneyland.
kid. Whatever it is.
Where
It doesn't
was
make
I?
any
I don't know where I
difference.
was. In Florida.
But just one question. How
Yes.
hot was it? You said it was hot.
Well,
Was it like
it's
100
hot
degrees?
everywhere. What are you going to do? It's
100
hot here.
degrees?
It's hot. No, it was about 90, and
90,
we had
wow.
some very good weather. Actually, only had one hour of rain a day. It is a tropic. As one French person asked one of the Disney cast
Sure.
members as we were waiting to get our
Yeah.
picture taken with Mickey, he said, "Why is it so hot?" And she said, "It's Florida."
That is right.
Did you really get your picture taken with Mickey?
Yes. I
And
stood
can you
in line.
explain to me briefly, what is the joy in that particular experience that I may have missed? when I
Well,
was there?
the personal joy for us is
Yeah.
that my daughter Ruby, who is now 24,
Yeah.
Was terrified of characters, all
Oh, when she
characters
was a kid?
when she was a kid.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Until
Okay.
about 18.
Mhm.
But she wanted to be with the characters. So we have
Oh.
all these pictures of our first trip to Disney when she was 5, of her hiding behind me, being afraid to be next to the characters. So it's a victory
That's great.
that she can get her picture taken with Mickey. You'll enjoy the holiday card when
I
you
don't
get
think
it
so,
this
but
year.
thank you. I hope I get one. Thank you. Nice to see you, Sue.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so people probably know the Karen Reed trial. It was a hung jury, and she was accused of running over her boyfriend, Boston police over John O'Keefe. And there have been protests and demonstrations in favor of her and in favor of the O'Keefe family. But the big ones, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, have been
Yes.
for Karen Reed. It's gone national now?
Oh, it's gone international.
International.
It's been international.
We should say Sue covered this thing from
Yeah.
beginning
Yes.
to end. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the appeal supporting Karen Reed. And again, you do note there's not been, absent from every time we have this conversation, is talking about John O'Keefe, who regardless of what you think happened to him, died unexpectedly, died a tragic death, leaving
guardian
to his niece and nephew.
Yes.
And by all accounts, people loved him and was a good police officer and an upstanding member of the community. So he is often left out of these conversations and these standouts. But, Karen Reed, when we last spoke, there was a motion put forward to dismiss 2 charges against her, the murder charge and the leaving the scene of an accident, based on information that some jurors have come forward, signed affidavits, saying they found her not guilty on those 2 counts, but weren't asked, weren't polled, so no official verdict was given. So it was a hung jury on all counts. They say in an affidavit that they were confused about the process. So the case continues. There's a date for it in January. I'm sure there's an appeal on her side against the ruling that the judge rejected the dismissal. And so I don't know personally, but I'm going to make an educated guess here that it's important for Karen Reed and her team to continue to stay connected to this group of people, thousands and thousands and thousands of them, both here in America, here in New England, and internationally, because she's going to need funding from them as well and have relationships with them so that they will continue to be connected with her as this court case moves through the system. I mean, it could be appealed to the state Supreme Court, the fact that her lawyers are saying it's important, we should know this. This is as important as other things that jurors, if they express bias or if they had outside influence. So I talked to one expert who said this could go to the Supreme Court, this not asking.
Wait, who's alleging bias?
Well, they're not alleging bias, but they're saying the only 2 reasons you can actually ask a juror what they were deliberating about is based on bias, right, or outside influence. And they're saying, well, they were confused and they found her not guilty on 2 counts. So they had standouts yesterday on Sunday, which is when folks get out, wear their pink, and hold their Karen Reed support signs. And Karen actually went out and visited with many of them and posed for pictures with them and sent videos. So, this is a story that has now become intrinsically part of the fabric of what's going to be happening in New England.
I know you're pretty close to this, in terms of your reporting on it. I would assume that when the prosecutor knows that on 2 of 3 charges, including the most serious one, there are credible reports, not just to the defense, but to the prosecution, that there was a unanimous vote to acquit, that they'd be concerned about how they do the next round. And by the way, I'm not taking sides. I'm just mentioning what happened here. Do you know of any conversations going on between her lawyers and the prosecution about a potential plea or anything like that?
I don't know, and they refiled they didn't refile the charges. The charges still stand for murder.
Which is odd, really. It seems that she was overcharged, no matter what happened.
I think it's clear she was overcharged.
But if you're a prosecutor, why do you often overcharge?
For a plea deal.
In the
hope that they go down to a lesser charge.
Well, not even if it's a plea deal, but if the jury, as Margery says, decides that we can be unanimous on a lesser charge, which they might not have been had that been the most serious charge.
So it's going to be ongoing, and I think it's just one of these situations where, we're soon to have, the Dateline episode. There's a number of, there's a Netflix and probably a Peacock documentary coming out. So this is just going to continue on. And again, I would say, if the Canton Police and the Mass State Police had done proper, in my opinion, investigation within the first 3 days of John O'Keefe's death, we would be in a different place. And as we are getting back to work here at our cities and towns and elections, we ask a lot about where our overtime money is going for our police departments. We ask a lot about the diversity of our police departments, which we should. But I think every small town and city should be asking, what kind of training is our police department getting when it comes to a simple response to someone who has been hurt and is dying on someone's lawn? Because the one appalling thing, there's many appalling things about this case, but as I talk to people who cover true crime, real journalists who cover real true crime, and I say I'm astonished at how bad the police work was done on this, they tell me to get used to it, because small town police work is often bad. And if we all had the money to go to court and challenge somebody based on a criminal charge against us, we would probably get off because our police work across this country is often bad.
You know,
I'm sorry,
you
Margery.
mentioned the small town police. I mean, this case of that Sandra Birchmore,
another one
in Stoughton,
and
that
many of the people,
same county, and the state police
Yes.
once again seem to have totally botched this whole thing. Right. Immediately coming to the conclusion that it was a suicide, where there was all this evidence.
And many of the people involved in the Karen Reed, the police, law enforcement, were involved in this case as well. So I mean, you know, we
should say finish the story. The U.S. attorney is just charged a cop with murder in the Birchmore case.
The Globe had a really good story. Laura Cromaldi and Shelley Murphy, two great reporters over the weekend, talking about the mass investigator saw a suicide and feds saw a murder, and this young woman, Sandra Birchmore, they're accused, these police officers, of being involved with her when she was a teenager sexually, when she was underage.
It was rape. And you have two federal investigations in one county based on the police work. So I think it's important. And listen, I come from a police family. Some of my best friends are state police. I know that there are any number of really excellent police work that's done. But when you have a case that is these cases just are very clearly not done correctly. So where's the training and the accountability? I think that's when you're looking at your state budget, your city budget, your town budgets, that's what we have to look at.
Well, I think we've all been asking about accountability for the state police for how many years now on this and a bunch of other things, overtime scandals and working when you're not working.
Golden tickets to be able to drive a truck without taking a test?
Yeah. That's a very good one as well. Thank you.
Speaking of trucks, would either of you mind if we skip the whole story of Starwing that is next on our list?
No.
Because
you know what?
I'm sick of this story.
You know whose fault this is?
This is when trucks they're too
People
tall to drive down Star Drive and do the bridge. What?
It's our fault.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Because we have people who come to this city once a year for the first time. They're driving a U-Haul or a rental truck. Why can we not prevent this? What is it about our signage? Why do we always expect that we're going to have 5 to 10 trucks that get caught under these bridges, and we are unable to stop it?
Wait, didn't I say we weren't going to talk about this? You're still angry what I said about Disneyland?
As far as we know, did anybody get stuck this college?
Who cares? Who cares?
Yes,
of course they did.
It's the tiredest story.
Okay.
It's sort of like journalists. Oh, it's so-and-so.
But how
They're
many
moving
people
in
does
next week. Let's do the same damn
How
story
many people
we do
does it impact, though? It impacts thousands of people because of the traffic if you're going to a doctor's appointment.
And I think you should also be aware of those mattresses and couches that are left over
don't
on the
take
street
those.
all over
By
Austin.
the way, what kind of
bed bug
person
issues.
takes a mattress
Somebody who
from
thinks,
the sidewalk?
Somebody who
a
thinks,
student.
hey, this mattress looks pretty good to me. I have kind of a crummy mattress. Why the hell not?
You have a bug in your you-know-what before the night is over.
They don't find that out until later.
Okay, maybe some people like that. Okay, so another
thing we're
story
not going to talk
that's
about.
getting tiring, but believe me, we're going to mention it to the governor when she's here on Friday. Here is Maura Healey being asked, I think for the first time, it's on Face the Nation on Sunday, about whether or not she'd be interested in being the possible U.S. Attorney General, and she's rumored to be on a short list. No one knows if it's true or not, if Harris is elected. Here it is.
I love being governor of this state. I love what we've been able to do, free community college, better access to health care, making sure that we do things to move forward economically. I'm a pro-growth Democrat, as is Kamala Harris.
That's enough of that. She basically doesn't answer the question, which, she's not going to answer. We're going to ask her again on Friday.
She's not going to answer.
But it's not, in light of her, as she said, she filed more than 100 lawsuits against Trump. It's not unreasonable to think that she'd be on a list should Harris be elected president.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely she should be on the list. I always laugh about these questions about how she's not going to, no matter who you ask, no one ever says, yes, I'm on the short list. I don't think that's ever been an answer to a question, but you keep asking it anyway in hopes that you get something.
I think Vivek Ramaswamy said he wanted to be vice president. He did.
That would be true. But yeah, she definitely should be on the short list. She's exceptionally qualified. Governors and former attorneys general make great federal level cabinet folks, so we'll see what happens.
Okay, so I said I'm not going to use adjectives. I'm going to try not to use adjectives about Trump anymore. This is going to be tough. Here is Trump at a campaign rally on Friday talking about this controversial, which is an understatement, visit that he and his team made to Arlington National Cemetery about a week ago.
Then they said to me, I'm not surprised, I never even thought about it, sir, would it be possible for you to have a picture with us by the tombstone of my son. I said, absolutely. I wasn't doing it I don't need publicity. I get a lot of publicity. I would like to get a lot less publicity. I would pay to get, I'm the only guy I would hire a public relations agent to get less publicity.
Okay, so what do you make
The
of
thumbs
this?
up, don't forget. That was the
I
thing.
am
The
so glad you
thumbs up.
brought that up. A smiling thumbs up
Yeah.
by the grave of one of these people who sacrificed their life.
Yeah, it's outrageous, and I continue to be shocked that people aren't more upset about it. And you know, the ignorance that many Americans have about things in general is, I'm just back from vacation, but I'm going to try and get through the day for it. You know, they are saying things like, well, other people have done it. Like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris visited Arlington National Cemetery. Well, no kidding. Presidents and vice presidents, that's what they do. They visit it on holidays. It's not a campaign, although you certainly can make the argument that everything that an elected official does is somewhat of a campaign thing. It's not a campaign visit, right? John McCain actually had a clip of him at the cemetery visiting his dad in a campaign ad. As soon as he realized that it was in there, he pulled it out and he apologized
Said,
for using it. I made a big mistake. There's been other candidates for other offices who have done that. As soon as they realize they did it, because it's against the rules, they pull it out. This is not about Trump paying homage to and tribute to someone's fallen family member and then just having the picture taken, right, and kept secret or kept on their mantle. It was used in his campaign propaganda, right? So the fact that he doesn't understand that that's what the difference is, and the fact that Americans continue to support someone who has such disregard for our armed service members and their families is just atrocious to me.
This is the week after he says when Marianne Adelson, who's obviously a potential huge contributor, the award she got from him as president is far better than those comparable military awards.
Right,
because they're either dead or injured
right.
or that sort of
You know, and it's just part of the cult. I mean, the moment that I thought that Donald Trump could win the presidency was the moment that he insulted John McCain and said, I like my heroes that not to get caught. And when there wasn't an enormous...
I thought that was the end, by the way.
No, I thought...
Shows how naive I am.
I thought there were a million ends.
In the early days of Twitter, I was actually following a number of right-wing, not right-wing by today's standards, but right-wing before Trump, military accounts, individuals and veterans. And when they were not appalled by what Trump said, that to me said there's a danger here that Trump is going to get elected because they should be.
Speaking of John McCain, I just say one more thing. I've talked about how politics have changed now. People seeking high office have changed. You know what I happened to watch this weekend?
What?
Everybody's seen it. Remember the moment at the town hall when McCain was running against Obama?
Oh, yes,
and the older woman raised her hand and asked a question saying something like Obama's an Arab and whatever. And he pulls the mic respectfully out of her hand and says, no, he's not, madam. He's a decent man, a decent family man. We just happen to disagree on the issues. It was such an incredibly, and that's a risky position for an opponent to take.
Too, when he talks about how he likes heroes that don't get caught, that was Trump, you know, and people may recall that John McCain was kept, I believe, for 5 years as prisoner of war.
And he stayed. He could have gotten let out, and he stayed because of his connections. And
tortured.
You know, and the other thing, too, with the MSNBC article that we were looking at before the show, talking about the way that the Trump campaign thinks it's okay to bully people and intimidate people. Like, there's a federal employee who worked at Arlington National Cemetery who said you cannot do this and was basically bullied and in some reports physically touched and pushed. And the disregard that they have for people doing their jobs in order to get their way is astonishing. And I'll make another point.
Did you say, to add that she's not going to file charges because she's afraid of retaliation,
which we know from the poll workers that we've seen what happened. But another thing that the campaign is doing, which people aren't really noticing, is that all of their rallies are being held in sundown towns.
Yeah, mention what a sundown town is.
A sundown town is historically a town where if you were black, African American, you had to be out of the town before the sun set or you could be arrested or worse. There was no accommodations for you to be in that town when the sun went down. And they are purposefully, I'm sure, just like they launched their campaign in Waco, Texas. That's where their campaign kickoff was for this campaign cycle, which is the hotbed of white supremacy and the headquarters of anti-government terrorists. They are doing this as a sort of dog whistle and call to people about where they are. So it's just, don't miss this subtle mention of these things.
So Sue O'Connell, if we can change gears for a second.
We can't play the sound of large.
No, when you were in prior life, you were in the music business?
Yes, I was indeed. I worked for A&M Records, Geffen Records, Atlantic Records, and I was the music director at Kiss 108.
So you know a lot about music.
I'm an expert.
So Margery and I heard this song last night that we both thought was fabulous.
Okay, I'll take a listen
and we
to it.
wanted your judgment. Here's a song by an up-and-coming star, I would say.
Speaking of heroes.
And Sue is going to give us a little judgment about whether or not, what potential this has. Go ahead.
Without your bravery, we're all out of luck. No, this can't be denied. You gotta be special. It takes a lot to put your last in everybody.
I think that's enough,
That's
pretty much.
enough,
So
that's enough.
what do you think, based on that limited tidbit?
Point out that we all think auto-tune fixes everything. Apparently, this is an example that this is off. This is terrible. But what does she
Who is
care?
it?
It's a Trump, isn't it?
It's Laura Trump.
Laura Trump. Is she in charge of the RNC?
She's the head of the RNC.
The head of the Republican National Convention, because I know you're all worried about socialism if Kamala Harris takes over, but don't worry about the nepotism that goes all through the Trump campaign, that she's in charge of the RNC and she's released this song. What's it about?
So you don't think there's a lot of potential?
No. Well,
here?
there's a potential for about how many people voted for him?
70 million?
70 million people are going to love that song.
Okay, fair enough.
The
That
rest
is
of us
called
will just
Hero
be
by Laura Trump.
Hero.
We shouldn't. And Madeline James is her whatever you call it.
God bless her.
You know, Jim, Brian from San Francisco
What do
just
you
texted.
say?
He said, you talk about daylight saving time and a dozen other topics twice a year like
do,
clockwork.
yeah.
So please talk about how to prevent the dumb trucks getting stuck.
Oh, and
on
stall and
Starry
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very
actually
much.
probably- That's a good
Thank you
point.
very
It's a
much,
fair
Brian.
criticism.
So before you go, the Surgeon General, he's really kind of got the pulse of the nation. He talked before about the loneliness epidemic, social media problems, gun violence. Now he's talking about the stress of being a parent, and I like that, especially
do I.
because I think sometimes mothers get more of it. What did he say?
Yeah, he's saying that we need to look at the situation of being a parent in a way that could be distressful to your mental health and to your physical health, and finding ways in a government institutional way to support parents in a more forthright way to help them with their mental health. And he also points to, this is a lesson I think that we all learn when we're about 30 or so, if we're parents or around parents. Our children grow up in such an extraordinarily different world than the ones that we grew up, no matter how young you are when you're having kids. If you're in your early 20s, 20 years ago, we didn't have Instagram. 20 years ago, we didn't really have Facebook. And now that's all that they're doing. And it's not like for the millennia where, your dad was a farmer, you were a farmer for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and nothing changed. So in order to become an effective parent, you have to become an expert in areas of things that didn't exist when you were young or you were a young adult. And so all of these things, plus the comparison issues, you could make a mistake, a continual mistake in parenting and never know it was a mistake. But now you're on social media and you're comparing yourself, and your kids are demanding things that they see on social media because, I'm continually telling my kid when she was growing up that we were not wealthy. We're not wealthy. We can't do this. We're not wealthy. So he's looking to try and add structural support for parents, especially, single parents who are doing it. The challenge, of course, is that as a nation we continue, even though there have been some incremental increases, to not support families in the way that we say that we do. I've got family members who are living in Germany right now, and they want to get a dog. But Germany doesn't want them to get a dog because it's the process you have to go through to get a pet dog in Germany is really expensive, and they really go through. But they do want you to have babies in Germany, and they want to support families in Germany. So you can get a lot of free daycare, you can get all these supports, all of the things that the government wants you to do in some other countries to support your family is there. But here in America, we give lip service to it. So this is hopefully a leadership comment to help institutions and governments and cities and towns to better support families. One thing I'll agree with Elon Musk on, we don't have enough people in this country if we want to continue to grow our economy and have people to support elderly people. Now, an answer to that would be legal immigration to bring more people to our country, or it would be to encourage people to have larger families, which you guys have talked about at length. It's too expensive, it's too stressful, we don't have government support for it, and if one wheel comes off the carriage, the whole thing goes down the tubes. So at some point as a nation, we're going to have to agree that we want to support families, and in doing so, it would be good for our nation.
Well, we have a lot more for you, but I know you and your daughter have to go to Canopy Lake this afternoon.
I love Canopy Lake.
Sue O'Connell, it's great to see you. Come back soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue O'Connell. We've been speaking with Sue O'Connell. She's co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, co-host with Corey Smith at NBC 10's.
How much you spend at Disney? She's not telling me. I don't blame her.
Don't ask that.
Co-host with Corey Smith at NBC 10 Boston's At Issue every Sunday at 11:30, right after Meet the Press. Coming up next, Lee Pelton of the Boston Foundation is going to talk about Kamala Harris' plan to put a dent in the housing crisis, a crackdown on DEA, and affirmative action's impact on college admissions. You are listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
From GBH News, I'm Soraya Wintersmith. Join me for What is Owed, a podcast exploring how one of America's oldest cities is figuring out its reparations debt.
Available at gbhnews.org and wherever you get your podcasts.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Lyric Opera, presenting Mozart's Mitridate. Passion and politics collide in this rarely performed work. September 13th and 15th at the Emerson Cutler Majestic Theater. Tickets at BLO.org. After legally living in the U.S. for 20 years, the lives of a Salvadoran-American family are upended when their temporary protected status is revoked. Watch Voces, Almost American, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery and Jim Browder. We're live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. You're back here tomorrow. That's Wednesday. Thursday in Brighton, we'll be joined by Senator Elizabeth Warren. And Friday, the governor, Maura Healey, will be with us at the library in person from 1 to 2. Joined now at the library by Lee Pelton. Lee is the president and CEO of the Boston Foundation, a member of GBH's Board of Trustees. Previously served as the 12th president of Emerson College. Good to see you, Lee.
Good to see you. Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Good to be here.
Lee, Margery hates quizzes. I love
do.
quizzes. So I'm not going to ask her. I'm going to start with you on a quiz. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay. It is fun?
Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, yeah.
What do you, and think long, you don't have to rush. What do you and Mackenzie Scott have in common? Go ahead. You know who she is?
Yes.
Okay, what do you two have in common?
I know the answer.
Well, let's have the
good.
answer. I mean, everybody says they know that. What is the answer?
She and I were among a group of 50 people who were named as the most powerful and influential nonprofit leaders in the country.
What is up with you? I mean, this is like this is like By the way, congratulations.
We have him on our show. He's one of the top 50,
This is like
and here he is. So that's good for us too.
By the way, Mackenzie Scott is the billionaire former wife of Jeff
ex-wife
Bezos.
of Jeff Bezos.
What were you? If I know you don't want to talk about this. It's pretty obvious, but it's an incredible tribute added to all the other incredible tributes from the Harvard whatever you got, the president's thing, number 3 in Boston Magazine,
Which
most influential
Jim
person in
still
town.
talks about.
I'm still upset about all these things. What did you do? What did this nonprofit? What did you do?
I have no idea.
Yes, you do.
I know I don't.
I'm going to tell you what they said. Pelton is focused on the racial wealth gap in Boston, ending that city's long history of racial disparities. He backed 6 local nonprofit leaders, $4 million in the Shifting Power Advancing Justice initiative. His team is seeking to educate and influence donor-advised fund holders to make this priority. Congratulations in all seriousness.
Yes.
It's really
Well, thank you,
well-deserved
but-
and wonderful.
And
This makes me very nervous.
I know it does.
I
be nervous. We feel very, very lucky that you're here. You know, this helps us too to associate with power people.
You know, Emerson had this notion of compensation, and I think this is compensation for my precipitous drop from 3 to 6.
Oh, you were dropped to 6. That's right.
In the Boston Magazine.
By the way, I don't want to bring this up, but since you're bringing up some ancillary things, you notice he wasn't winning any of these awards before he showed up on Boston Public Radio.
I know.
Do you notice that? I don't know if there's a connection.
It may help you, Jim.
Checks in the mail.
Exactly. Thank you.
So we talked a lot about the impact of affirmative action with you. I guess we have some idea now. The Globe is focused in on Amherst College, a great small liberal arts college up near UMass, and Tufts and MIT. What's going on?
Well, it's a new world, right? And you know, we'll see for 2-3 years from now where we are. But there's been a precipitous drop in the enrollment of Black and particularly Black and Latino students, not only at Amherst but at Tufts, at MIT, which was really very significant, and a number of places. And so Edward Bloom and his merry gang have won at least this first round.
They were the people he was the guy that initiated the lawsuit that ended up at the Supreme Court where affirmative action as an issue was struck down by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we see this increasing enrollment at historically Black colleges, and this story really talked about. I remember reading something by Ta-Nehisi Coates years ago. Maybe it was about Jim Crow or structural racism or something, where he talked about showing up on the campus of a Black school. I forget which one he went to, and it was like a whole different experience for him for the first time in his life. So, is this a reaction to affirmative action, or what's it about?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
and it in some respects it probably happened organically, but I think it's not unlikely that historically Black colleges and universities redoubled their efforts to reach out to Black students. We have a presidential candidate who actually went to one of those colleges.
That's right,
yes, indeed, Howard, of course.
Yeah. So.
Well, we've talked a lot about the impact of going to women's college, where everything is run by women, for women, and all that. I mean, it's similar to go to
because you don't feel like the other.
Yeah.
And when you're at Howard or Spelman or Morehouse, sort of your racial identity, in a particular sense, disappears because you're part of the same folks with you share that identity. On the other hand, I want to make very clear that while your racial identity may be the same, it may be that your social, your cultural, your environmental identities may be very different. In fact, they will be very
What do you mean?
Well, if you, for instance, from a wealthy Black family, your experiences, your orientation to the world is likely to be very different from someone who came to Morehouse, from public housing.
Yeah.
And had a different kind of experience and a different kind of set of expectations, and a different orientation to the world, and a different cultural experience. So there's still diversity there. And we shouldn't.
But I want to be careful here, at least from my perspective, to not see this as a zero-sum game. The admission, particularly of Black students at this case, the MITs, the Amherst, et cetera, going down, but it's going up at the HBCUs. The flip side is it's not just a qualified Black kid who benefits from affirmative action, who gets to go, let's say, to school, you have a connect, Harvard, but it's me who is there, who instead of being at a college class, which is representative of the community that I'm going to enter when I'm done in a few years, is in a class that's not representative at all of what that. So it's not. There's so much focus on, in my opinion, on the damage that's done in this case to a Black kid, but the white kid, the Latino kid, the Asian kid who doesn't get to share a classroom or a campus with the full diversity of their society is a sufferer as well. I mean,
absolutely, and I use the phrase often, inclusive excellence, because you cannot have excellence without diversity. It is impossible. And we know that from our own experiences. Those of us who are lucky enough to have, some sort of financial portfolio, it is diverse. Darwin taught us that biodiversity diversity was very important and contributed to the survival of the species. And we could go on and on and on. So diversity it's really baked into our humanity and our living, and you cannot have diversity you cannot have excellence without diversity. Recognizing, of course, that excellence is always about becoming something, not about being something, because it's always about continual improvement.
But one thing I wonder, when we talked about these women's colleges before, we get into a fight about it because you think they're a terrible idea, even though your daughter went to a women's college. I think they're a great idea, even though I left a women's college to get a date. That was a long time ago. But it changes you in a very dramatic way. And before all these schools became co-ed, there was always Radcliffe, but it wasn't part of Harvard, and these other schools like Princeton, Yale. So before they became co-ed, you looked at women who were big deals in America, and so many of them went to Smith or Wellesley or the women's colleges. And I wonder if the same kind of thing is seen from Spelman and Morehouse, colleges that have been historically black, that it matters in terms of becoming later on.
Yeah, I think it can be, for most of those students, very affirming experience, because you don't feel like the other. You're part of a culture, part of a group of students who have had similar experiences. When my youngest daughter went off to college, and even though I'm a college president, at no point did I direct my students to go to this place or that place or that place. It was up to them. But
your children, we call them. We don't call them our students. We call them our children.
Our children.
Thank you.
My children. So in my house, we call them students. But
they better be.
For my youngest daughter, I said, you have to apply to at least one women's college.
Did she?
She did.
Did she go?
No.
It's a hard sell, I think, but there is a lot of value to it, I think.
We don't have time for this today. I just want to say, in all fairness, the colleges are in a really tough position until they figure out a way to legally circumvent the decision, if they choose to, of the Supreme Court of the United States. They have a ruling. The fact that private sector corporations are fading on the DEI front when there's no legal mandate, and we've had this discussion before, are they doing it because they're nervous about suit, or they're doing it because this provides cover for them to undo what they really didn't do to begin with? And I would say, if you're really committed to DEI, you stick with it and fight. If you're not committed to it, you blame Edward Bloom and all these other people and retreat. Is that, you don't agree with that?
No, I do. I'm a little less cynical than you are about this, but I'm
not sure that's really true, but go ahead.
But, we talked about this before. There's some concatenated results of this. It's like dominoes falling, and we knew that this was going to happen, and it has. And it's not done. I mean, we'll see more and more of these private corporations and companies that will abandon DEI. And I believe that is a huge mistake. I think you ought to be brave enough to stay wedded to what your particular values are.
And if they sue you, come on down. Defend yourself and come on down.
Well, when I was reading the story about these right-wing companies kind of folding, and Harley-Davidson, tractor supply company, John Deere, this also mentions the story that Bud Light lost a lot of money when they had a partnership with a transgender influencer. They lost $1.4 billion in sales. But I also thought, okay, they're a huge corporation, Budweiser beer, and so are these other companies. And that was what's kind of surprising to me, that they, with all the money they make and their massive profits, that they couldn't stand up a little bit more.
Well, what we need more companies to pave the way, actually, and not give in to, into the culture that we're now in. I mean, this is not new. I mean, this is a backlash.
Yeah.
Against DEI, and we've seen this before. One step forward and then we move backward. I mean, backwards, and it's that's sort of the unraveling of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and so on. I mean, this is this is the world that we live in.
You know, we should talk to Jeffrey. What's the professor at Yale who was on our show who did the analysis? Jamie's talking to somebody. That we had that guy, Sonnenfeld, is that his name? Jeffrey Sonnenfeld,
yeah.
who did the analysis of companies in the United States who are doing business in Russia, which sort of step back after the invasion of Ukraine. Somebody should do something about companies that have the courage to stick with their commitment to DEI and those that are in retreat. We're talking to Lee Pelton, president of the Boston Foundation. Lee, housing is a huge thing. We talk to you about it almost every time you're here. We're going to have Governor Healy on Friday, and we will obviously talk about her $5 billion housing bond issue, which we think has a lot of good things. I'd be interested to get your perspective. But there's a lot of federal disengagement from the housing issue. And front and center with Kamala Harris is this $25,000 down payment thing on a first time, and that's defined, not technical, doesn't have to always be first time, but first time-ish home buyer. What do you think of the plan?
I think it's great because that's been our plan for the last 2 years, as you well know. In our effort to not get into the housing business, but to get into the closing the racial wealth gap business by creating equity. And a major component, a feature of our plan was $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time homeowners or folks who are at a certain, economic or social scale. And our initial model was this: $25,000 down payment assistance for 1,000 families would produce $250 million of equity over 10 years. And so not only is our program and what's being offered through Kamala Harris, is it about getting people into homes, but it's about creating intergenerational wealth, because home equity is still the largest fraction of wealth. These are accumulated assets, not income, that we have in this country. Now, we have revised our $25,000 because we understand down payment assistance, because we understand that buying a home, staying at home is much more complicated than just $25,000. What about supporting folks who are on the brink of foreclosure or those sorts of things? And what about the family that needs more than $25,000? So our range now is somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 of down payment assistance. And we think the average will be around $41,000. And by the way, we're not doing this ourselves because we're not the federal government, but we're doing this with the Massachusetts Housing Partnership. They're in the business of that, and our resources are going to go to that. So we happily, we started fundraising for this really about 6 months ago. TBF has already put in, the Boston Foundation has put in $2 million, and then we've raised another $5.25 million just over the summer. So we're at $7.
Did you see where the median home price in Greater Boston now in July was $925,000?
That's down.
And that's down from now $960, right? Yeah. I mean, but that's, that's where we are. It's incredibly expensive.
Lee, we only have a couple minutes left, but as you mentioned, you were a university president, obviously at Emerson, not so long ago. That's when you were raising students in your household, as we call them. Most people call them children, but I understand you call them a little something different. There are a ton of articles appropriately in the newspapers and stories on TV about how prepared campuses are for inevitable protests around what's happening in Gaza. And I'm curious, in a minute or two, if you were still doing that job, what would be your guiding principles in an attempt to allow students to be heard at the same time that there was not great disruption of people's education?
Well, I would do two things. One is I would do and reflect seriously on what went wrong on my campus the year before, and make sure that I don't make the same mistake that I made. I'm going to make the same mistake this year. Second of all, I would, and this is what's happening everywhere, send out a clear message, a set of guidelines about what is appropriate and what is not appropriate on this campus, and it will be different at Campus A as opposed to Campus B. But you can see right now that college presidents and senior administrators are setting out clear guidelines. They're different at different places. I think Emerson has said you can demonstrate, but you can't demonstrate outside. I don't know how that's going to work. And Harvard has prohibited certain kinds of I think signs and those sorts of things.
Well, I wasn't going to bring it up, but you brought it up. Your successor was fine with having students arrested at Emerson, demonstrating in a public place. What did you think of that? Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard the question.
Okay.
I heard the question.
Okay.
Let me put it this way. So it's a difficult set of circumstances, and I'm sure the president did the best that he could do in the moment.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. All righty.
Lee Pelton, thank you very much.
Congratulations, in all seriousness.
Very
It's
powerful guy, Lee.
By the way, before you go away, you mentioned the racial wealth gap. You told us a year or so ago that you, in conjunction with some other foundations, the Fed is redoing or updating the 2015, I think, study that we've all cited like 16 million times. Average white family, $247,000 of wealth. Average black family, $8. Dominican family, $0, etc. What's the status of that effort?
Still working on it. I approached the Fed when I was still, the Boston Fed, when I was still president at Emerson. And that's been 3.5 years ago. I thought that we could get this finished sooner than we are now, but it's moving forward with, to use a quote from a famous Supreme Court case, with deliberate speed. And we'll get there. It's very complicated this time because the net that is being cast is much wider.
I understand that.
Broader.
We're looking forward to it. Lee, good to see you. Lee Pelton, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We have been speaking with the very powerful Lee Pelton. He's the president and CEO of the Boston Foundation, a member of GBH's Board of Trustees, and he previously served on as the 12th president of Emerson College. Thank you very much, Lee. Okay, coming up, you've been texting us all day. We're going to get to your texts up next on primary election day, which is today. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, Massachusetts voters are headed to the polls as primary elections kick off. The MBTA's reduced fare program that will make public transportation affordable for low-income residents launches tomorrow. And Ketanji Brown Jackson's historic confirmation to the Supreme Court began with intense scrutiny. Now she's sharing her perspective as the entire court faces scrutiny. Those stories starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Shriners Children's Boston. Accidents happen, and when those accidents involve a burn injury of any size, Shriners Children's Boston is the place to turn for any burn. Shriners Children's Boston, the most amazing care anywhere. And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Conjuring the Spirit World, Art, Magic, and Mediums. Open September 14th. For tickets and more information, you can visit pem.org/spiritworld.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim, Browdy, and Margery Egan live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here tomorrow. Thursday, we have Senator Warren in the studio. Friday, the governor with us here 1 to 2. In the final few minutes before the 1 o'clock NPR and GBH newscast, the new thing for us, we're bringing you a new daily segment. We've been soliciting your texts all day about the state primary election today, which Margery said she knew about. I don't believe it.
I did too.
That's what she says.
I
You forget
knew
about it too. The number's 877-301-897. Let me tell you how this works. First thing in the morning, we're going to tweet out what this texting question is. And by the way, Rosenlol texted, the boyfriend is the a-hole. It's always the boyfriend. This has nothing to do with that. There is a topic.
It's okay,
Did you
Rose.
vote today?
She's
if
right.
you did, why? Bill Galvin, Secretary of State, says only 15%. And we complain a lot on this show, and so do you, about the ineptitude of our legislature. But is the problem really us without challengers in many cases and without any motivation to go to the polls? How are we sending a message to these legislators that we're not happy with what they're doing? Did you actually vote today?
I'm going to vote this afternoon.
Did you really
on my way
remember?
home.
Raise your right
Yes,
hand
I
and
did.
say I remember.
No, I did because the governor's council race is big, as many people are pointing out.
Maura Dolan and
Marilyn Devaney is
yeah.
running against her, and Maura Dolan used to come in with different politicians over the years. I've gotten to know her, so.
Marilyn Devaney also called our show after she did the curling iron incident.
Yeah, there was
and
a curling
admitted
iron
to it.
incident at the hairdresser's.
Well, that was years and years ago.
That was not good.
Okay, so what do you think about this? Actually, this is a good one. This person, Lippis Sticky, tweeted.
This is a good one.
I'm looking forward to a robust discussion about how I should vote in today's uncontested primaries. There were 5 races that I voted. I was the first voter this morning at 7 o'clock
Yep.
in my district ward, whatever it's called, in Cambridge. All 5 were uncontested. Here's a quiz for you. Why should I have bothered to vote since whoever was on the ballot was going to win? They were uncontested. Why does it matter?
Well, that's a good question.
No, it's not.
Well, it is a good question because I think that the sense is that why are you voting? As this other person said, I voted by mail, but honestly, I wonder why I had to do it this time around. Everybody on this particular ballot was unopposed. Did you already say this already? Voters in only 26 House districts and 6 Senate districts have any kind of contested primary election today, even though all 160 House districts and 40 Senate districcts are up for re-election.
But you didn't answer my question. What, should I not have voted today because they were all uncontested?
No, I think you have to show that you're interested. I mean, I think you have to show that you're paying attention because it matters if they know what you're...
Right. He's predicting 15% turnout.
Nobody will care.
Exactly. They can do whatever the hell they want.
And as we always say, this matters big time on all sorts of issues. For example, we talk about housing all the time. It's a big problem. Well, any kind of rent initiatives that the mayor of Boston, that would be Michelle Wu, wants to get going, she has to go through the legislature for this kind of thing.
And they're all sitting. So is the climate bill,
licenses.
so is the economic development bill, so is the plastic bag thing, all those things. And if you don't vote to show you care, even in an uncontested race, then you're basically saying the legislature, first of all, it's your democratic obligation from my point of view. But secondly, you're also saying to the legislature, you can get away with whatever you want. And by the way, it's also hugely important if you're a Republican or going to vote in the Republican primary. 2 guys who are on our show, John Deaton, Ian Kane, I don't know what the third guy's name is. We invited him, he didn't come.
Running as Republicans against...
They want to be the candidate to run against Elizabeth Warren.
That's right.
That's a really important race.
She's going to be with us on Thursday, by the way.
She is, yeah.
So Beth from Plymouth texts, yes, I remembered it's primary day, but only because I signed up for mail-in ballots. Whoops.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
That's a pretty good one.
What else?
And anonymous texter says, 15% voter turnout probably doesn't even include the legislators who are on their eternal vacation.
5-month vacation.
And somebody else says, I'm not voting for Mariano. He's the head of the House. He's from...
We call that the Speaker, Quincy.
Yeah, Stephen Quincy, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This person said they wrote in Diana DeZoglio. Now, Diana DeZoglio is a state auditor who wants to investigate the legislature. But as the Globe just reported, she's going to be prohibited constitutionally from
Well, that's what one guy says. The guy from Tufts, Evan Horowitz, is going to be with us on the show. Yeah.
But I think we should be investigating the legislature and find out what the heck they're doing up there.
Okay, fine. Margery, can I return to my first question? Look at me, please. Did you really know it was election day?
Yes, I did.
No, you're not looking at me.
Yeah.
You're not looking at me.
You know why?
No, I don't know why.
Because there are signs all over my neighborhood in Brookline. They're on the middle of the MBTA. They have them on the middle of Beacon Street, all over the place. Primary day, primary day. I've seen a lot of signs for a certain candidate in my neighborhood, and I probably shouldn't tip the scales.
You know that number you read before about the number
15%?
of primaries that are being faced by legislators? Virtually every time we discuss the legislature being the least effective in America, almost every caller agrees with us, yet only 1 in 6 or 7 people are going to bother to vote today. It's a real serious problem. You got to vote.
Don from Malden points out a very big problem.
What is it?
No more bake sales. She says the only thing I miss about voting in person are the bake sales.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Only in Georgia can you not give people water. You can do a bake sale.
Have you seen a bake sale in your district in a long time? There used to be great bake sales at the precinct, the school I go to vote.
Yeah.
They've been gone. They've been gone.
It's really sad.
They've been gone. Well,
if you can't get a donut, why bother to vote? That's my motto.
Or a brownie or a nice Napoleon, what are those things with the cream in the middle? You know,
it's
that
called
kind
a cannoli.
It's not called a cannoli, Jim.
Call it a Napoleon.
No, it's kind of Napoleon kind of deal.
Okay, fine, whatever it is.
All right, we're done with this. The news is coming
Margery
up.
hasn't
And
voted
right
yet.
after the news, I'm voting right after the show, Jim.
Yeah,
I get my little sticker and I'll show you tomorrow. The Arrow Streets Arts Nonprofit is launching this month in the old Oberon space. That's where the ART used to be over there in Cambridge.
Did you ever see the Donkey Show?
Not yet. They're going to be up next
no,
on
gone.
Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library Street.
The Moth is returning to Boston this October for live storytelling, and GBH has your tickets to see it. It's true, immersive stories told live at the Wilbur Theater. Learn more and reserve your tickets now at gbh.org/moth.
Support for GBH comes from you
and the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from utility bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And Carr Financial Group, independent fiduciaries committed to guiding investors through the changing economy with wealth management, financial, and retirement planning services. Consultations can be scheduled at carrfinancial.com.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. Across the river in Cambridge, a brand new art space is launching with a bang. 11 days of live music, cutting-edge theater.
I'm Lakshmi Singh. A longtime senior aide to Democratic politicians in New York State has been arrested on charges that she and her husband secretly aided the Chinese government and China's Communist Party. Linda Sun and Chris Hu face charges of money laundering, bank fraud, and failing to register as foreign agents. Here's NPR's Brian Mann.
Linda Sun has been a top Democratic staffer for years, working for former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, current Governor Kathy Hochul, as well as New York Congresswoman Grace Meng when she was in the state assembly. Federal investigators say Sun and her husband, Chris Hu, quote, acted on behalf of the People's Republic of China and the Chinese Communist Party, allegedly pocketing millions of dollars. According to a statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Sun, quote, actively concealed that she took actions at the order, request, or direction of Chinese officials. Sun and Hu were arrested on Long Island. They have yet to enter pleas. Brian Mann.
Urban Institute says those rules are controlled by states and cities, not the federal government.
So unless they kind of cut down more restrictive land use and zoning regulations, then it would probably be more difficult to attain that 3 million goal.
Harris also wants to give $25,000 to help first-time homebuyers. But Choi and others say boosting demand like that during a housing shortage could drive up prices more. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
Former President Trump says if elected, he'll make it cheaper to buy a house by bringing down interest rates. However, that authority lies with the Fed, not the president. Trump's also said that deporting unauthorized migrants would free up housing. Industry experts have warned that policies seen as hostile to immigration could be a blow to new construction, which relies heavily on immigrant labor. Shares in Boeing are slumping today. NPR's Scott Horsley explains one reason why.
Analysts at Wells Fargo have downgraded Boeing stock in anticipation of a possible machinist strike. The jet maker's contract with the machinist union is set to expire in less than 10 days. Later this week, the Labor Department will offer an update on the U.S. job market. The Federal Reserve is keeping a close eye on the labor market as it decides how much to cut interest rates later this month. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Boeing shares are down more than 8%. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. From the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston, I'm Henry Santoro. It's primary day here in Massachusetts, and polls are open for voters to choose the Democratic and Republican nominees for federal and state races. Mary Wanneman of Quincy says she's leaving the ballot blank for city council members after they approved a 79% raise for Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch in June.
I understand that raises have to happen, but the way it did and the extent of it was just ridiculous. So came out to not vote for any of those who are on the city council.
The move boosted the mayor's salary to $285,000 per year and more than Boston Mayor Michelle Wu and New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Quincy poll workers say that it's been a typically slow primary day, but the races people are turning out for include probate court and registered deeds. Polls will stay open until 8 tonight. Meanwhile, about 47% of ballots mailed to Massachusetts voters had been returned as of 7 a.m. today when the polls opened for in-person voting. According to Secretary of State Bill Galvin, the 47% translates to 468,520 mail-in ballots, with nearly 29,000 additional voters opting for the newly implemented in-person early voting. Last week, Galvin forecast today's turnout would hit 15%, and if that is the case, it would mean that most of the voting has already taken place. We're looking at a sunny day today, temperatures in the mid-70s, perfect day to get out and vote. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Charles Schwab, offering investors choices like full-service wealth management, advice, investing, and trading on thinkorswim. Learn more at schwab.com. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Here's Jim Brady. I am Margery Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Yes.
It's hour number 3.
Didn't I say 3?
Close enough.
What did I say?
Said number 2.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever
Number 3.
it is.
Number 3. Back here tomorrow and Friday. Ask the Governor Maura Healey. She's going to be with us from 1 to 2 on Friday, taking our calls and our questions and your questions. And we're going to be joined on Thursday, but that's not going to be here, but we're going to be joined by Senator Elizabeth Warren on Thursday in Brighton. Hour number 3, Jim.
Hi there, Margery.
Hello.
Hello. So we have news, if you haven't picked it up, starting today at the top of the 1 o'clock hour. And we're going to do that texting thing every day with your participation shortly before 1 o'clock. Starting Thursday, the Arrow Street Arts nonprofit will host an 11-day festival celebrating their launch in the great old Oberon space. Their mission to provide accessible, affordable, high-quality performance venue for Boston area artists to showcase their work. They'll tell us a lot more. Joining us now to discuss is Arrow Street Arts founder David Altshuler, Liars and Believers executive producer Georgia Lyman, who's the curator behind ARROWFEST, and Boston drag star Candace Persuasian, who'll be premiering her own original show, Fabula, Gods and Goddesses Among Us, next Saturday, the 14th, at the venue in Harvard Square. It's unbelievable. I was going to wear the exact same outfit. Thank God I did not, by the way. For more information on all things Arrow Street Arts, the website is ARROWSTArts.org. Again, ARROWSTArts.org. Welcome and congratulations, all three of you. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much, all three of you, for coming in. So let's start with you, David. Elaborate on what Jim said. What is Arrow Street Arts all about?
So Arrow Street Arts is a sort of the rebirth of what was the Oberon Theater, but greatly expanded. We've almost doubled the space from what was there before. It was black box theater. We've now added a dance and performance studio space as well, and then also opened up the lobby. So we have 3 sort of venues in one. And the theme behind it is to try and have a active arts, multi-arts sort of center complex for Harvard Square that will be able to address everything from spoken word to regular straight plays to musical theater to drag performances to aerial circus. You know, it's sort of basically a wandering smorgasbord of art forms.
Okay, so George, I was going to ask you, which I will in a second, about what the content's going to be for the 11 days. But before we get to that, we have one of Beyonce's BFFs right here. And I think we really got to address this issue. Here is Beyonce reading Candace's sign during a stop on her Renaissance tour not too long ago. Here she is.
Thank you so very much. I love you so much.
Now, Candace, your sign said trans is beautiful. Can you describe what that was like for you? What was that like?
Yeah, so I've been doing drag for the last 10 years, but I've been performing since I was 16, and one of my biggest inspiration has always been Beyonce, and so when she came out with the album that really celebrated queer culture, specifically Black queer culture, that I am inspired by, like the ballroom scene that we've seen from Paris is Burning, I knew I had to go see her, and 10 years ago in 2013 when she came to Boston, I couldn't afford to go see her, and then I just worked extra hard and I was able to see her front row. We were there at like 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, just waiting outside. And she would read a lot of people's signs, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it would be amazing if she read a sign that I wrote. But I didn't know what I wanted to put. I was gonna say, maybe she can say Candace or whatever. But I knew that this moment was gonna be bigger than me. Like if I was able to get Beyonce, one of the biggest stars, to say trans is beautiful in the sold out stadium, that would mean so much to like our community as well. And she has featured so many trans people on her current album. And it was the very last second of the concert, and she's flying over, wow. And I'm just like waving this sign, and the print was not even that big, and she smiled at me and she said trans is beautiful. And then later that year she put me in her film for a second. a little cameo. And
great.
so, yeah.
That's great.
That is
Okay,
really
Georgia,
neat.
sorry it took a while to get to you. You're the curator of this thing. First of all, tell us what Liars and Believers is, and then tell us about these 11 days.
Sure. So Liars and Believers is a devised theater ensemble, and basically that's theater jargon for we make up everything on our own. And this latest piece is called Don't Open This, and it's an immersive spectacle that was commissioned by Arrow Street Arts in order to open up this festival. We really wanted to showcase the venue, we wanted to showcase the community, we wanted to show off everything about it. So it's shrouded in a little mystery, so I can't tell you what it's about, except that we've transformed this space into an other world called Box, and it is the source of all your desires. But what happens when what you order online is not actually what your soul needs?
Oh.
And it's got a little bit of everything. It's
I
got
like
an
that.
aerialist. We like it too. It's got puppets. It's got live music. It's got dance. And the audience is free to roam around the space. So it's non-seated. There are places to sit if you need a break. But otherwise, you just get to roam around and enjoy the magic that's happening right in front of you.
You know, David, I also read that there's going to be stuff for kids and even babies, and there's going to be free lunchtime concerts.
Yeah, that's part of our core activities to try and activate the square. And just like we have this big glass front that we've expanded to be able to bring the art into the street and also bring all different types of people into our spaces at different times of the day and night. We even are taking a look at doing things late night in the 10 to 2 window. And so it's really about trying to figure out ways to bring life back into the square, which has been so challenged sort of in the pandemic and post-pandemic space.
Challenge is sort of a euphemism, I should say. As somebody who lives less than a mile away, why, Georgia, this is such an obvious and wonderful idea in a place that used to be known for its arts life that is dissipated.
Yeah. Why has the arts dissipated, or why is it?
What took so long? I don't mean for what you all are doing, but David and I were talking about, there's a movie theater. It's been closed for like a decade on Church Street that is ridiculous, owned by Gerald Chan, by the way, not to disparage Mr. Chan. So,
yeah, I think it's really important what David is doing with Arrow Street Arts. It was a beloved performance community space. Oberon was where all of our weirdos had a home for a long time. And now that Arrow Street is up and running, it's still that kind of welcoming, inclusive space for the community, and that's a big part of what we're trying to show off with ARROWFEST, is that all are welcome. Everybody should be able to afford to come. Everybody should be able to feel welcome to perform. Everybody should enjoy what they're seeing, and that's a large part of the curation. The free concert series that you mentioned during lunch is it's co-presented with Celebrity Series, and what they've done is we've co-curated from their neighborhood arts, and we are just putting them out into the space. You're going to be able to hear these incredible artists Monday through Thursday and grab a bite to eat, and it's free. Come on in, see the space, hear some incredible music.
So how do you fund all this? Because that's one of the big things you hear complaints a lot about, that theaters become so expensive, concerts become so expensive. How can you do things that are free and keep going? Or David wants to break in.
I can jump in on this. Basically, we've been very fortunate to have the support of our community. When we went to first start the stuff, we started with Harvard in negotiations, which took upwards of 2 years to be able to sort of get this stuff started. But then one of the first calls I made, what happened was to the Cambridge Community Foundation. And so they have an interest in an arts initiative, and I've been involved with some of these other groups. And so we basically went to them and sort of made them as a prime partner for this. And we've had other community members and people who are interested in supporting it. Plus, a core part of what we're doing at Arrow Street is it's a hybrid offer. It's a hybrid offer. From the beginning, unlike most other arts groups, we're embracing that part of what we're going to do is going to be commercial. We haven't done much of that yet, but we're right now starting with the arts. We'll also have private events and corporate and other things going on. Plus,
that's the voice of David Altshuler, who's the founder of Arrow Street Arts, joined today by Liars and Believers executive producer Georgia Lyman, who's the curator, and Candace Persuasian, Boston Drag. So let's talk about Beyonce. No, we did that, right? So tell us about Fabula, which is happening on the 14th. What's that going to be like, Candace?
Yeah, so Fabula is a show curated with a bunch of other drag performers in Boston. It is the Latin word for story, and so we wanted to make sure that we are inspired, and all the performances that are involved will feature a lot of individuality, gender expression, gender identity, as well as dance, singing, lip syncing, and all.
How hard is it to find venues? We've had a lot of drag queens over the last couple of years, particularly after some of this unconscionable threats and JP and those kinds of places. How hard is it to find venues to do your art?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. There's not a lot of venues left for us. We also lost Machine. I wasn't old enough to go to Oberon back in the day, and so like coming back after the pandemic, it's like, oh, all the places that I went to are no longer there. Luckily, I'm still at Jacques Cabaret, which is the oldest queer bar running in the U.S. But other than that, like the stage is so small, and so when Georgia approached me with this opportunity, I was like, I'm going to take it.
Well, you know, Ryan Landry, who's a regular here with the Gold Dust Orphans, moved from Machine when it closed to whatever the hell it's called, the Armenian Hall and
some hall in South Boston. It's much bigger.
It is.
So you have a lot more room to get people in there. You know, we talk a lot about this with Jared Bowen. People know he's the executive arts editor. He's got the culture show that comes on from 2 to 3 every day. We're unusual in the United States. We really don't fund the arts the way so many other countries do that have so much more involvement with kids and schools, et cetera. Is that just a forever problem for the United States?
I sure hope not, Marjorie.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't. I think there is a lack of appreciation for the arts and culture in American society at large. I do know that there are other cities where that lack is a little bit less, that people, especially government, understand that funding the arts, it really feeds the soul.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that the arts should be every day. They're not a luxury. You shouldn't have to pay $250 and get dressed up and go to a big fancy venue. You should just have them ingrained in your everyday life. And that's a big part of what we're trying to do, is make sure that people know that every day over the course of the next 11 days, there is something happening that you have to be at. There's so many incredible things happening. We want to make sure that everybody gets used to coming and seeing the arts, that it becomes a part of their daily ritual.
So after these 11 days, what's the world at Arrow Street going to be like there, David?
So we have, over this next year, we've got a mix of everything from, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels will be opening up in the end of September, which is a production from Moonbox Productions. It did some things with us last year. And then we have some Bollywood activity. We've got dance groups coming in. We've got puppets later in the year. We have some live music events. And so we're going to have a broad array of a couple of dozen different artists over the next
You're worried about this as a business proposition?
You'd be insane not to worry about it. And so you've got to be careful, and you've got to basically have a forward-looking business model that, again, has a mixture of philanthropic support, has a significant amount of earned revenue from tickets, but then also takes a look at ancillary things like food and beverage matters. I mean, Oberon had a very significant bar activity, and we'll have some of that again. It's not, we're not trying to be a nightclub in that sense, but you've got to put a bunch of different pieces together. And so that is part of our core activity, is figuring it out. The other thing is we're a learning organization. We're a work in progress. It's great to be sort of cutting the ribbon, but our learning is just beginning. And so a year from now, we may have a very different business model on how it works exactly, because we're trying things out and seeing what works.
I don't know if this word is part of a startup business thing, but it sounds to me, as an outsider who lives in Cambridge, that this is huge fun. Is fun?
Oh my God!
Looking at George, all three of you are smiling.
Look at us.
So yes,
Look at us.
okay.
It does not look fun.
I mean, it's really. I mean, it's
exactly.
great.
I don't want to do anything that's not fun at this point. I'm old enough, and I've been through another couple of different lives, and so I think that I do this, and I show up puts a smile. No matter what's happening, good, bad, or indifferent, I end up, ending the day with a smile from this work.
Fun is a good thing. I want to return to what Margery said a minute ago, Georgia. She mentioned lack of support for the arts. You know who also wrote a book about it? Mark Volpe, former head of the BSO, wrote a book and was on with us. And we talked about that. Every artist with whom we've ever spoken, actors like you in, I don't know, your former life, but part of your life, musicians, whatever it is, say that particularly in troubled times, which is all we've lived in forever, there's nothing more important to rescue the spirit of somebody than having the arts around them. I don't understand where the disconnect is. I don't understand why people, by the way, Mayor Wu seems to get it. We should be fair. She has sort of reinvigorated or begun to reinvigorate a government's commitment.
Yeah, she's a musician herself.
To the arts.
Yes.
So she is, and we saw her play actually at
really
Boston
good.
Symphony Hall, and she did Mozart in a packed place.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. She said she was terrified, which I thought was quite honest. So make the pitch to people in positions of power. Why should they be supporting the kinds of, starting with you, and we'll go right down the list. Starting with you, Georgia.
Why should they be supporting the arts? Because the arts are what feed our soul. Because during the pandemic, when we were isolated, we turned to books, we turned to music, we turned to video, we turned to anything that we could do. My own son, for example, when he was isolated, he started actually calling and FaceTiming his friends, which he had never done before, because we lack that human connection.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what Liars and Believers does, is we work at the intersection of live performance and social emotional learning. We try to help people, including ourselves, be better humans, right? And the arts are fundamental to that. Storytelling is the oldest form of communication in the world. It's how we learn. It's how we express ourselves. It's our archetypes and our methods of communication. And without live performance, without being in a room with other people, breathing, even masked, together, experiencing something together, it's a total disconnect, and society starts to break down.
Speaking of COVID, and isn't Will Daly part of your deal list?
Yes.
Will performed, I actually had him on television, performing from his shower
was
during
great.
COVID.
I've seen
which
that.
was
He's fantastic.
pretty great. So
Yeah.
make the case, Candace, why does it matter? Why do the arts matter to people, and why should people support them, both governments and individuals? Why do they matter?
Yeah, I think oftentimes people project the version of yourself that is most comfortable for them. And so for drag specifically, it helped me really discover who Candace was and found my way through my own trans identity. And I think we often hear when people are involved with arts that art saved me, music saved me, and stuff like that. It just allows people to be authentically themselves, and also just, it would be nice to escape from like a 9-to-5 job for a little while, right? So it's always nice to just have something that you can either lean onto that feels safe for you, feel comforting, and maybe outside the box for you as well.
How about you, David?
One of our founding ideas is that art builds community, and community builds belonging. And so if you take a look at our sort of our greater embrace of sort of civic life and me living in the city, these things fit together to create value and create a reason to want to live where we live. During COVID, one of the things that happened for me is I ended up like leaving town because of the kind of work that I do. I can be easily connected from anywhere that I can get to the internet with. And so I just sort of, like many people in the work from home world, it was like we spread out.
Yeah.
And one of the things I discovered was I'd always thought that I was a city kid because I loved living in Cambridge and things like that. And I came to discover something. I'm not a city kid. I like looking at cows. I like looking at the ocean, whatever it is. And I found out that the reason I liked cities was not because I intrinsically like cities at all, but I like what I can do in a city. I like to be able to go to a restaurant. I like to be able to go to music. I like to be able to go to theater. I like to be able to see sometimes edgy art that makes me question why I showed up. But that's all part of the experience. And so for me, this whole endeavor is to try and bring life back in the city so it's worth for all of us to be together.
Any cows in the thing for the next 11 days there, Georgia, or no? Cows.
I'm going to make a quick couple of calls.
You are?
I'll have
See
them
if you can
here.
slip them in there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think David would like that too, actually.
You got it.
Candace, I'm always amazed when we've had people that do drag on before how incredible they look. I mentioned you do look incredible. So how long does it take you to get that look perfected?
Candace woke up like
this. This is just what I wear to go grocery shopping, So.
Yeah. I mean, but you get perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect outfit. I mean, it must be time consuming a little bit.
Yeah. I think there are set times people, like if I have a lot more time, maybe 2 hours, but if I'm late, which is mostly all the time, I'm just hoping for the best.
You do it quick.
Usually it's dimmer lights where I'm at.
Yeah, you just tone it down a little bit.
And we should say Candace has like a 10-foot train behind
it's
her.
It's a spectacular
so it's
outfit.
pretty spectacular.
And David, you mentioned before, or somebody mentioned, you have stuff for kids and babies. What can you do with the baby in your place? Do they run around that rotunda that I read about?
Well, we actually have spotlights that follow the magically, and so that, in fact, one of our key themes is the audience is the performer, and so anyone who shows up will actually be. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. I mean, the important part at one level is that babies typically come with parents.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that we're trying to basically where it can be an experience where it's just not trapped to. Again, I think Georgia talked about this idea that art is about this dressing up and doing everything to the nines. That can be a thing that happens, and we'll have some things like that. But we really want to make it where it's come as you are, come who you are, and then we're going to have something for you. And some things you like, some things you won't, and we'll adjust.
Jim mentioned that almost every time we have an artist on, they talk about art is a soothing and part of feeding your soul, as you put it, Georgia. But it also, with the arts, people we've had in, they've all started really young, that they either went to some play when they were 5.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, and so it does kind of underscore the importance of really not waiting until you're
It's a
17.
habit. It's a habit, and you have to cultivate and feed the good habits just as we try and correct our own negative habits. So there's a bunch of family programming happening, including, something for babies on Sunday the 15th, first thing in the morning, whipped up. You can bring your child. On the Brattle has curated a short film series on Friday.
Oh.
And we're encouraging people to come in, and it's sensory friendly. We don't care if your kid is crying. You can change a diaper on the floor. Make yourself at home. Just come in and be welcome. There's a lot of family programming, including another Liars and Believers show the same Sunday that is fully accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community. It's all about belonging.
And all of this is at ARROWFEST.org. The whole agenda
Correct.
for the whole 11 days.
The whole thing is there.
So this is addressed, before you go to Georgia and David, since you're the founder of this thing and you're the curator. Startups make me really nervous. I mean, I have nothing to do with this except I'm happy you're happening. How nervous are you about, this is a pretty radical thing. It shouldn't be in Cambridge, but are you nervous?
No, I'm super excited. Why not? Because I believe in what we're doing. Because I believe in all of these incredible artists. I've spent the last 9 months with them, talking to them, helping them figure out what they're going to do, or just saying, what is it that you want to do, and trusting the process, because that's what we do. We trust and we support artists, and the incredible work that is coming out of here, including 3 mini festivals within this festival, one on Sunday for dance, Will Daly's curated showcase on Tuesday, and a hip-hop event on Sunday. You're not going to see anything else like it. I'm excited. Let it be Thursday already. Let's
Are you
go.
nervous?
Art, lovely art, lives on the edge. Emerge and we get smarter and we learn from as we go. But again, I love the idea that art is a chaotic enterprise, and leaning into that, accepting it, and then that makes us artist friendly, because artists love the freedom that they do. And then we're getting better work done from better folks because we embrace that. We're not just trying to be a sequel of another brand.
So you are nervous. Thank you very much. Of course.
Okay,
I'm really
100%.
excited about this.
100%.
Congratulations to all 3 of you. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you so much.
I want to give the website a couple of times here. ARROWSTArts.org. That stands for Arrow Street Arts. ARROWSTArts.org.
It's as usual, Arrow Starts.
Arrow
Starts.
ArrowStarts.org.
Thank
you, David.
We're getting going.
Yeah.
ArrowStarts.org.
Thank you. ArrowStarts.org. That's even better. Thank you very much. We've been speaking
Good
with
luck to you all.
ArrowStarts
Great.
founder David Altshuler, Liars and Believers executive producer Georgia Lyman, and fabulous Candace Persuasian, who does look fabulous. The Arrow Street Arts Launch Festival begins Thursday. Candace's show is Fabula, Gods and Goddesses Among Us, and it premieres at the festival Saturday, September 14th. For more information, to find out all the stuff that's going on, again, ArrowStarts.org. Thank you all very much.
Good luck to you all 3.
Yes,
it's great.
for coming
Very
in.
excited.
I hope everything works out great. Thank you. Okay, up next. We are mourning the end of summer, at least I am. This morning's chill in the air snapped us back to reality. Is it time Jim Browdy puts those cargo shorts back in whatever closet he found them and puts on a pair of long pants? We're going to take your calls and texts about the end of summer. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Gloucester Stage, presenting The Hombres with Teatro Chelsea. Macho construction workers get sucked in by the yoga studio next to their job site in this premiere comedy. Starts September 6th. GloucesterStage.com. And Heal Veterinary Clinic in Watertown, committed to providing their clients with conversation-focused visits and caring for pets with low-stress animal handling techniques. Heal Vet, a better experience for you and your pet. Heal.vet.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Margery and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back here tomorrow. Thursday, we're in Brighton. Senator Elizabeth Warren will join us, and she'll have an opponent by then because the Republican nominee will be selected today in the primary. Please vote if you haven't already. And we're back here on Friday with the governor, 1 to 2. Oh, and I didn't know this. The mayor is joining us here 11 to 12 next Tuesday. So school starts Thursday in Boston. Many kids around the state are already back, which obviously means summer is over for everyone. Maybe you had high hopes of taking a camping trip by Labor Day, or you wanted to get one more day at the beach, and then you woke up this morning and realized it was 51 degrees outside. Are you mourning this week's return to reality? Back to work, not that anybody goes to work, back to school, or are you finally celebrating some peace and quiet at home, wrapped in a blanket so you don't shiver? The number's 877-301-8970. We were talking about the end of summer. I know it's not technically over for a few weeks, but it is over, and it is really difficult for some of us, and we want to know how you're coping with it at 877-301-8970. How are you coping with it, Margery Egan? You're a big summer person.
You know, I read these stories this morning. It made me feel like I am not alone, because apparently lots of people are mourning the end of summer. And this one story from Time talks about how there are biological, psychological, and social reasons for a seasonal mood swing, and that may be why some people, including myself, are very sad to see summer go. They talk about daylight starts to wane, temperature may drop. Your body can generate less serotonin, Jim, a neurotransmitter linked to mood control and sensations of well-being. But I just think summer is a kind of thing where you're not, usually that's when people take vacations in the summertime, so you get to be with your family, you get to go to the beach, you maybe sit in the beach and look at the ocean, which is really nice.
You're free. You're free in summer.
Is that it? Okay, you're free
in
the summer.
That is
it. And it's just a time that's very brief. When you think about it, it's basically just July and August, and then it's done until next year. And also your plants all start to die, which is very depressing.
Well, that was upbeat. Our number's 877-301-8970. You upset that summer's over? I assume somebody's going to call, as they always do, and said, can't wait for winter, can't wait for the snow and the hail and the ice and all that sort of stuff. That is not me. But we want to know, how do you you know what I'm doing today? I told you that. I'm wearing shorts.
You are.
It is probably my final shorts wearing experience in an attempt to keep summer alive. What do you mean, there you go? Don't you think, isn't that the right spirit, by the way? I think it is.
To wear shorts
or to do something that allows you to keep in the summer sort of mentality.
Yeah, it's hard, though. It was in the 50s this morning when you
I know,
woke
but it's going to be in the 70s this afternoon.
Quite cool. Listen to this. This is from the New York Times by somebody named Cody Delestrati. It's a very lovely written piece. It is. It says, it comes gradually at first, then like the Hemingway-ism, suddenly. Beach chairs fold up, kayaks return to garages, speculative camping trips remain just that, the plans and possibilities of summer cease, and it's a lot about, too, not doing what you wanted to do necessarily in the summer. That you
missed it, you mean?
Yeah, that you missed some things that you wanted to do, and you're sad about that, and you're just sad that another year has passed so quickly.
What did you not get to do? What are you sad about?
Well, just I could have spent more time at the beach. I like going to the beach. I like going to the beach, and people say, yeah, you can go to the beach, and it's still nice, and you can go, and it's true, but you know, the snack bars tend to be closed, and it's colder weather, and you're not really probably going to go swimming.
So the number's 877-301-8970. You were complimenting this piece in the New York Times by Cody Delestrati. Is that a friend of yours or something?
No, I don't know the person.
Okay, so but the truth is that loss is relative. If it's significant to you, even about something intangible, like losing your sense of purpose or state of mind, or even your summer without feeling you've made the most of it, it's legitimate. It's not up to others to decide for you. Is that the biggest pile of crap you've ever heard in your life?
It might be a little flowery.
You think so?
Flowery, yeah. A texter says that climate change means Jim can wear his shorts more.
That's probably true.
Of every year. And other people feel differently. We have another texter that says, autumn is my healing time. I feel such peace. Autumn is for introverts. We go to a cabin in New Hampshire for a quiet getaway, and it's so blissful. Bring it on. So a lot of people think that fall is their favorite season. To me, it's not my favorite season, even though it does get beautiful around here with the change, and the foliage, et cetera, and the nice crisp days. We always talk about the crisp days of summer. It's not like the heat and the sun and just sitting outside and relaxing.
And you know what? I don't know if you're aware. You know what comes after?
Winter.
Winter, which is another problem.
That is the only good thing about climate change around here, unless you happen to be in the ski business in New Hampshire and Vermont,
sorry for that.
it is not as cold. Now, we can have great fluctuations, and so it could be that we have a brutally cold winter because climate change is about extremes, but lately we have not had very cold winters. In fact, it hardly snowed at all last winter.
You know what I also think? I know that's an issue. You know, one of the reasons why I think this is less traumatic maybe, less traumatic for people, I said it jokingly before, so many people don't go physically to work full time or if at all anymore. And don't you think that was the most jarring part of returning from summers and summer vacation was physically having to get dressed up and go to your office, which most people don't do anymore, right?
That is a very good point.
Thank you. I appreciate
Another really
that.
good point
What
is
is
all
it?
the people that have young kids, like this texter who says, I have been training like a Patriots
good one.
punter so I can boot my kids over the horizon and out of my house. School can't come soon enough.
I understand
And that is
that.
a good point. When your kids are little, I mean, it is like all bets are off. It's insane all summer long. Even if you have the kids in camp for part of the time, and you are kind of happy to see them go off to school in the fall. Anyway, let's go to Margot in New Hampshire. What do you think,
Hey, Margot.
Hi there. Okay, hi. So I'm really sad about summer being over. I hate winter. And so I basically just kind of hibernate. But I am trying to enjoy these last few nice days.
What does hibernate mean, Margot? You just don't go out for 6 months? What does that mean?
I kind of don't. I only go out if I absolutely have to.
Well, don't you notice, Margot, that things are getting a little bit warmer even up in New Hampshire? I mean, last winter was not a good season for the ski operators up there, you know?
No, it wasn't. And that's fine with me. I go out if I have to get groceries or something like that. But otherwise, I stay home and I work from home. And that's what I do.
You know how to live, Margot. Thank you for the call. Another nice thing, at least this year, Margery, about the summer turning into fall, is the blue, the green, the orange, and the red line are all standing by due to a power problem on all lines, apparently. Personnel are working to overcome the issue. Let me repeat. Only the blue line, the green line, the orange line, the red line is service standing by. And by the way, we have Philip Ang, the GM of the T, here on Monday at the library on Monday?
That's every,
back there, 11
every
to 12,
line.
to take your questions. What?
Blue, green, orange, and red is every line.
That was my point.
Every line.
I
Wow.
believe that is correct, Margery.
That's a problem.
That is a problem. That is a problem. Let me repeat. The blue line, the green line, the orange line, the red line. What's left over?
There's
after
nothing left
nothing.
over.
Silver line.
Oh, the silver
That's
line.
working.
Wait a minute.
So if you need
Is
to go
that
to the
line
airport, which is probably shut down too, that's a problem. Service, we don't know what this means, but service is standing by doing due to a power problem on all lines. The good news is personnel are working to overcome the issue. And again, we'll have the GM with us in Brighton, but you can call him and ask him a question. I have to say he's a pretty forthright guy. Phil Ang, relatively new GM of the T, Monday 11 and 12.
Now, G from Jamaica Plains says summer was so humid, I'm not sad to see it go. And another overwhelmed parent says, why bother having kids if you can't wait to get them out of the house?
But actually, I am pretty happy to have kids, and I couldn't wait to get them out of the house. You're the same boat, right?
I couldn't wait to get them out of the house.
I know.
That's true.
No, you're supposed to say you were also happy to have them, right?
Oh, I'm very happy to have
How
them.
many do you have?
3.
That's right.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
No, I haven't forgotten
3.
that, Jim.
Okay.
Norman from Providence, thank you for calling.
Hi, Norman.
Oh, hey. I was telling them that I grew up in South Florida.
Oh.
And in South Florida, you don't really experience seasons.
No. Right.
It's very much the same all year round.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly why Floridians are kind of very quirky to begin with, because they don't experience the passage of time through seasons. And I think it's very important as a species to experience that.
Do you think Ron DeSantis would be more like a human if he actually did experience the seasonal changes, Norman?
I can't speak for Ron DeSantis or the Florida man in general, but I'm a better person because I live in the Northeast and I experience that now.
Well, that's pretty great. Norman, thanks for the call.
You know, I think that's so important. When I was in college in California, I didn't feel like there were any seasons either, even though people would say, yes, there is. It gets, rainy a little bit in the wintertime. It gets a little bit colder. But it's weird to me, if you've grown up here. It's really weird.
So how do you fit that into loving the seasons, which I don't? How does that fit neatly into your sadness that summer is leaving? The seasons are just changing. Why aren't you happy?
Because it's not. Because in the really nice hot weather, you're supposed to do everything you're supposed to do in the fall and the winter and the spring. You know what I mean?
No.
The summer's kind of a time where it's so hot and it's so lovely. That's where you take your vacation and you do these kinds of things. And then when that warm, hot weather continues into the fall, it seems unnatural to have to go in and do your studying or do your work because it's still beautiful outside.
Did I tell you that the blue line, the green line, the orange line, the red line, services standing by due to a power problem on all lines?
If service is standing by, where are the people? Are they inside the
They're
cars?
standing by. Actually, they're standing by.
Are they in the cars sitting
I believe
by?
they are, yes.
Are they in the tunnels? Are they
They're
out
in
of
the tunnels. They're in the
cars.
cars.
We don't know. Well, we don't know that, Jim.
They're standing
we don't
by.
Know that. Okay. Barbara in the car.
Someone just wrote, this is true, because you were on the wrong side of this too. That's evidence we should have hosted the Olympics. Can you imagine we're in the middle of the Olympics in 2024 and an announcement goes up, service is standing by on the blue line, the green line, the orange line, and the red line. How about that?
Well, that's one of the theories that the Olympics would have fixed.
You think it would have?
No.
Okay, exactly.
Barbara in the car, thank you for calling.
Hi, Barbara.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Unfortunately, I just entered the tunnel coming off the Southeast Expressway. So
I'm so sorry.
We
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay.
Oh, maybe we just
We could
lost
hear
her.
you. You still there?
I can hear you.
Well, this
Yes,
is where
I
you
can
say
hear
something,
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
You're all set.
Okay. I woke up totally happy at 51 degrees this morning. I love the way the air feels. I love the way that the air smells. And I felt energized. I feel very lethargic during the months of June, July, and August.
Yeah.
But my body responded very well to the cool temperatures.
Oh.
And my husband and I woke up happy, and I'm even happy driving in the car.
Now, you're happy you're driving in the car because the blue line, the green line, the orange line, and the red line are standing by. That's why you're happy. Now, Barbara, let me ask something. You're happy about the seasonal change, you and your husband. How do you feel about the fact that in a few months it's going to be pitch black outside at noon? How do you feel about that?
Not going to be noon.
3 o'clock.
I learned many years ago that if I don't go outside midday, and I don't care how cold it is, if I can get outside for 20 minutes, a half an hour, I feel so much better.
Boy, you are really a well-adjusted human. Barbara, thank you very much for the call.
Even though the blue line, the green line, the orange line, the red line, service is standing by.
Are they all standing by?
Now, an East Boston resident just added that the Silver Line is really a glorified bus.
It is a bus. No, it's not a glorified bus. It is a bus. Isn't that a bus?
I don't know.
Isn't this,
I've
Jamie,
never been
isn't
to the
this
Silver
a,
Line.
what happened to your shirt with the A on it? Why is your shirt not on? You were embarrassed? Jamie came to work today in a shirt that had a huge A, white letters, and no one knew what it stood for, including him, by the way, and he was the one wearing it. And he's obviously taking it off because he's embarrassed.
Dean Ashland points out that there are some downsides to summer, and one of them is the bad hair days. You know, the humidity, it makes your hair it's kind of stand up.
How great is hot weather? By the
I
way?
love
hot
the hot
weather. Is like
not everybody loves it. Listen to this. This is another Amy Grace who says, "What I missed this summer was going to Flagstaff, Arizona. I missed the exact same temperature with 1/1,000,000th of the humidity levels and 0 bugs." More mosquitoes this summer, too. Have you noticed that?
I do. And you see Fauci? I mean, not only that poor 41-year-old guy that died in New Hampshire, but Fauci had West Nile, was hospitalized, Dr. Fauci.
You have to get your bug repellent. Be very careful going out at night. Ken in Fall River, what do you think?
Hello, Ken.
Good afternoon.
And to you.
For me, the 3 greatest socialist holidays are in the fall and winter.
What are they?
Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Well, that's
depending
true.
on which side of the what?
That's true. Those holidays.
They're holidays. That's true. Well, who sort of cares?
So,
I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, Ken, but who the hell cares when they? I mean, that's like one day and then another day, then another day. But how about the whole season? How do you feel about that?
About the whole season?
Yeah, the season change.
I like the interzone. You know what I mean? It's part of the inter season. Which not really fall and not really summer.
Yeah.
The you know, the days are in the 70s and the nights are crisp. You know.
Crisp. Yeah. Okay, I mean, a lot of you are very happy, it appears. Ken among them. Ken, thank you for the call there.
Yeah, a lot of people are really, they just love the fall. I mean,
what is good
listen to
about
this.
cider donuts are about
Unlike the rest of you sun-loving hippies, I hate the summer and its heat and humidity. I'm counting down the days till winter when the weather becomes more civilized. However, unlike my father who wears shorts through the winter, I generally stop wearing shorts at Thanksgiving. Keep wearing those shorts, Jim, if you want to. Don't let Margery bully you into not wearing them.
Well, that is what's happening. Let me just say the following.
What?
Here's a conclusion. I haven't done scientific research, but I know this to be true. I say this to you every year. People are nicer to each other in hot weather because they're not as bundled up, which is sort of an insulation from other people. When you're in winter and you have so many layers of clothing on you, you're not as warm and accessible as the average person is when it's hot out and you're just wearing like a t-shirt and shorts. What do you think of that?
No, I think that's a very interesting theory. I think that's true. The girls in their summer dresses kind of thing, Jim. That's Jim's favorite.
Who wrote that?
Story.
Who wrote that again? Irving. Irwin. Allen. Irwin.
You got the first name right.
Irwin.
I can't think of the guy's last name.
Irwin.
He wrote a lot of great stories.
He did.
Yes, he did.
We don't know who he is.
Shaw. Thank
Irwin
you
Shaw,
very much.
Thank you.
Nancy and Beverly. What do
You know
you
when he
think?
wrote it, by the way?
When?
He was either, I'm not sure, but he was either on the red line, the blue line, the green line. If you're Philip Eng, by the way, I know we'll get to your calls in a second. Philip Eng's going to be here on Monday.
Fred Lasso at the MBTA.
And that's what his coworkers say about him. It's not us. And he appears to be a totally transparent kind of person. How do you think you feel? They're just shutting the red line down for like 2 weeks or something in September to deal with the slow zones. Apparently they're making progress. How do you think you feel about being at work and someone calling you on the phone and saying every line except the silver line is on standby? How do you think he feels about that?
I think he feels badly, but I think that this is the first time anybody's run the T in a long time that I felt kind of had an idea what they were doing.
Because he is willing to answer questions.
Yes.
That's why you feel it. He's sort of transparent.
Answer questions, that they don't hide everything that they're doing over there very suspiciously. He seems to be much more of a transparent guy.
I think so,
and
too.
we could use more transparency around here. Nancy from Beverly, what do you think, Nancy?
Hello, Nancy.
Hi. Well, I'm totally depressed.
Oh, good.
Because I hate the end of summer.
Me too.
And I hate the short days. I just
horrible.
I mean, really, I've been sitting here depressed.
So am I.
And you guys brought up this subject.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm just trying to put a good face on it for myself.
Well, you're not doing a very good job there,
I don't know, Nancy, if you heard me.
No, I'm not.
I know what.
It's saying at the beginning that psychologists say that the body generates less serotonin, a neurotransmitter linked to mood control and sensations of well-being at the end of the summer. And there are biological and psychological and social reasons for feeling upset about it. And I think you're not alone. I think there's a sense of loss.
So what are you doing about it, Nancy? I know you're feeling pretty miserable today. What are you doing to sustain the positive feelings of summer?
Well, you guys are talking about the lines, the T lines.
Yeah, they're all down.
Here in Beverly.
Standby, not down. Standby.
I'm relatively new.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take the commuter rail into Boston on the fall days that are nice, and I'm going to walk around Boston.
Oh.
And so that's an idea that I have. And that rail seems to work pretty well.
I like it. I think you have a very good attitude. Thank you, Nancy, and be well. Patrick in Canton texts and says, Jim, summer foods are limited to hot dogs and hamburgers. Fall is pies, apple cider donuts, stews, and turkey. Come on. Who's speaking there?
That's
What's
a good one. I don't know who's speaking. Here's a text from Joel in Connecticut. Darker, colder, sadder. And that's just the election. Fall also is not great. That's a good one from.
I can't remember. I know this is only 10 minutes ago, and I guess I should have paid closer attention. You do like fall or you don't like fall? I can't remember. I know you like summer the most. So do I. Do you like fall or you don't like fall?
It's okay. I mean,
what is the part you like about it again?
Because winter's coming.
No. What is the part you like about it?
Well, it's beautiful. The foliage is beautiful.
How many times have you gone up to see the foliage?
Well, I used to work in Vermont, so when I worked in Vermont, I would go see the foliage.
And it was like 70 years ago.
That's right.
Okay, when was the last time you were there to see the foliage?
70 years ago.
70 years. Everybody, when they say everybody says what you do. What do you say?
You know what I do?
What do you like about fall? I like the foliage.
I look at pictures online.
Oh, foliage. So do I. That's why I watch baby animals. I'm looking at baby. Have you ever looked at baby hippos, by the way?
No, I know you're big into baby animals.
Baby hippos, which are really heavy. They are really sweet and great. What's the matter, Jamie? Baby hippos. They're really good. Check them out, Margery. Let's go to Lois on the Cape, which is where I just came from. Oh, so did you. Lois, hi. What's your deal?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm in East End.
Yeah, oh, good.
And it's beautiful out, and it's going to continue being beautiful for a few months.
Yeah.
The crowds have gone down.
Yep.
I get to still continue with my gardening. I've planted seeds the last few days, and I love the fall. The summer is so hot, and we have drought, and we're all sweating and cranky.
Yeah, some of us like sweaty and cranky.
Or at least sweaty.
But Lois, you know what? I didn't come home. I came home a couple of days before Labor Day this year. But oftentimes, if you drive home from the Cape on Labor Day, you know what you see?
No.
You see all the people that live there year round.
Get the hell out of here.
Standing over the bridges with the signs, "Good riddance, glad to see you going," all that kind of stuff. It's pretty funny. I don't know if they did it this year because I wasn't there, but that's an annual.
You weren't on the Cape?
No, I had to come home.
Lois, thank
I had
you.
to come home for a birthday party.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look at the pictures that our colleagues put up of baby hippos. Are they the cutest things ever? What do you think of that?
I prefer a puppy.
Well, I'm not saying you should get a hippo, by the way. Hi, I'm either thinking of getting a dachshund
I don't know, Jim.
or a baby hippo.
I don't know. They don't do too much for me.
Oh, look at the top. We shouldn't do this on the radio, but trust us.
Okay.
Look at the little baby hippo in the top picture there. What do you think of that?
I think he looks like a space alien.
One of them is complaining, and someone typed on it, Jim, when he realized he had to come to work today, which is probably correct. 877-301-8970. We're discussing the misery that Margery and I feel with the departure of summer, which virtually none of you share, the misery
Well,
that is.
some do.
What are they saying?
Well, some do. Well, I've lost those. I'm looking at other ones now. I mean, a lot of people are saying they love this time of year and Indian summer. This is Tammy from Bradford. Planted peas, beans, carrots, radishes a few weeks ago, and they're making great progress. Gardening through the fall makes summer feel much longer. But a lot of your plants are dying. That's what's, you know what? Summer's ending when all the beautiful blue hydrangeas start turning red. Then you have the white hydrangeas come out for a while, but now they're all turning colors too. So it's, listen to this.
What's that?
This is very poetic
What is
text. Spring blooms with a tender kiss, summer's warmth, a sunlit bliss. Autumn colors dance and cheer, but winter's chill sucks.
By the way, Margaret in Boston, is that a text from Margaret? Margaret in Boston just texted. She just drove over the Longfellow Bridge. This is the good news, an update. Trains are parked on both sides at Charles Street.
Oh, that's good.
Station. Margery,
That's good.
only because I forget and Jamie took it down. Which lines are on standby?
The red, orange, blue, and green.
Green.
They're all on standby.
They're all on
and the
standby.
Silver Line is indeed a bus, but
I know it's a bus.
The texter called it a glorified bus.
No, it's not. It's a bus.
It's actually a bus.
It's a bus.
But they're usually connected, the Silver Line, are they not? Kevin's text is so quiet, his polling in place, a bake sale would have been pointless. They may not have the bake sales on primary. Maybe it's just election day. But didn't you look forward to that? The bake sale, everybody kind of milling about, and the kids selling, and the teachers selling stuff, and getting all these delicious
Can I tell you
desserts.
something? I was humoring you before. I've been voting since I was, I think, 18 or whatever.
You've never had a bake sale?
I've never even seen a bake sale at a polling place.
Is your polling place a school?
No, it's a city building.
Well, that's why. If you vote at a school, you often have a bake sale.
Like what do they have, for example?
All sorts of great sweets. They have pies and donuts and brownies and cookies. They're great. I mean, and people stand around and they chit chat.
How many times have you encountered that? Tell the truth in your whole life.
I've voted at a school forever.
You have?
And they got rid of the bake sales. I guess it was an anti-sugar crackdown or something like that.
I don't think they got rid of the bake sales. You can have a bake sale, can't you?
I don't know. I think there's some. We should look that up.
Can you look it up?
I think there's something about bake sales losing their support because of sugar, Jim.
Okay, Ellen in Weymouth. You're going to finish things off here. Go ahead.
Hi. I have to say that I love the fall.
Sorry.
I love the colors, and I just love all the little kids in their new clothes, their new backpacks.
Oh, my God.
And kind of the joy of maybe having a different year than they had the year before. It's so inspirational. That is like truly the new year to me.
These are like the healthiest people. Ellen, I don't agree with you, but I thought it was beautiful. Ellen, thank you very much for your call. You want to sum this up?
Here's Courtney in Boston. Fall and winter aligns with Boston's love of misery. These people are
exactly
weird.
Right.
Go summer.
Okay, look who, we can ask this of are you in
Oh
our
my God.
studio?
He's
Whose
zooming
studio
in.
are you in?
He's
Jared
zooming in.
Bone.
He's in our
I'm
studio.
sitting in your chair. I'm touching your chair.
Which I do not like at all. How do you feel about the end of summer, Jared Bone?
I have totally done an about face here because I used to love fall. That used to be my favorite season. Actually, partly for what your caller just said, the freshness starts and the cider donuts that you mentioned. But now summer is my favorite season, and I can't believe it's over already. Mainly this year for the food. Can I tell you all the things I haven't had?
Yes,
I haven't had a hot dog. I haven't had pasta salad. I haven't had corn on the cob. I haven't even had watermelon. I don't know what I was doing all summer.
Can I tell you something? I want to be as honest as I can be
That's
here.
a great point.
If I had gone all summer and not had one hot dog, I'd be too embarrassed to admit it. I'm serious. Why did you not have a hot dog?
You tell me. I don't know why.
You tell me. I don't know. Okay, enough
Corn
of
on
it.
the cob. We forgot to mention that.
Right.
And watermelon.
Yeah.
Lots of butter.
Forgot to mention what?
One of the great things about summer
corn on the
is
cob.
wonderful corn. And the tomatoes.
He didn't
Now,
have
the tomatoes
corn
are
either.
still there.
What do you
Tomatoes
think
are
about
still
him
there.
not having corn?
I think it's disgraceful, Jared.
I did have a tomato.
Everyone's talking about it.
Do you know that I had tomato salad, which I've never had in my whole life, virtually every day that I was on the Cape?
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think tomatoes are one of the great things. But
Thank you.
tomatoes do continue into the fall, though.
Okay, Jared, what are you
Every day
doing
I was
today
on the
back there
Cape.
in wherever you are, in Brighton? What are you doing?
Summering on the Cape.
What are you doing?
Summering on the Cape. I try to summer on the Cape as
What-
often
what's
as
going
I
on?
can
So
summer.
Oh, wait a second. Power has now been fully restored for the orange, blue, red, and green line for the time being, at
That's
least.
great.
That's great. So go ahead, Jared. What's your deal? What are you doing again?
So we are talking to the Pulitzer Prize-winning art critic Sebastian Smead.
Oh, he
I
is
know.
a brilliant writer. He's
I know.
brilliant.
What are you talking to him about?
So he has a new book. It's called Paris in Ruins.
Ooh.
And so before there was Impressionism, there was a horrific time in Paris and a war that really paved a way for the artists to come out of that war in a really profound way. And ultimately, we found Impressionism. So he writes about that. We'll talk to him about that book. And then we talk about The Hombres, a comedy up at Gloucester Stage Company in partnership with Teatro Chelsea. And speaking of the Red Line, we'll look at the art in the subway.
Whoa.
There's art in the Red Line?
There's a lot of art, actually, more than I could have ever imagined.
You're kidding.
You know, I know you don't need
didn't know
advice
that.
from me. Do you know who you'd have on your show as soon as possible?
Who?
Joey Chestnut. You really should. Think about that for a
all
while
those
and get back to
experts.
me. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll have to tune into Jared's show to find out
Why
where
not?
the art is on the Red Line. But like, you're talking everywhere or just
Time's
like
up.
Harvard Square?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Wow. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't know that either.
Jared, nice to see you. Good luck with
Okay.
the show. We'll be
Thank you
listening.
very much,
Bone,
Jared.
thank you.
Okay, thank you all for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thank you to the people who came down to the Boston Public Library. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. We're going to do some more TikToks, Jim.
Fine.
Tomorrow we'll be back here at the Boston Public Library with the aforementioned GBH Jared Bowen, retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, Worcester-based Queer AF ahead of their big gala, and CNN's John King. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John LaCroix Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL crew, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Sandra Lopez-Burke, and Juan Jose Cadena. Thanks too to our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to The Culture Show with Jared Bowen, which starts right after the 2 o'clock news here on 89.7 GBH. So we're back in the saddle.
And
Jim.
also, tomorrow morning on Twitter at BOS Public Radio, look for the text question of the day for you to weigh on, and then Marty and I will address it.
Okay.
Or at least attempt to.
I'm Margery Egan.
I'm Jim Browning.
Thanks for tuning in
Bye.
again today.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Carr Financial Group, independent fiduciaries committed to guiding investors through the changing economy with wealth management, financial, and retirement planning services. Consultations can be scheduled at carrfinancial.com. GBH is putting the spotlight on the stories closest to home. On Thursdays this fall, get your documentary fix with Local Lens. This week, don't miss Girl Talk, a local USA special. Thursday night at 9 on GBH2.
I'm reporter Esteban Bustillos, and you and I are listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH